Vegas is going to be legit.
Well, PBD,
Gentlemen, we're live.
Vegas.
You know what
Are we
your
live?
oh, sorry. You know what your look is.
What?
You rock the vest with the suit better than anyone.
Three-piece suit?
Yeah, I don't see anyone rocking that.
Better than Samvel.
Sam just wears vests. I asked Sam to take
the maitre d' in the
He
office.
just wears
Sam
vest.
took off his shirt. He had a tattoo of a vest on. It was ridiculous. I'm like,
He just wears
this is aggressive,
vest.
bro.
Okay.
By the way, so we have a guest here.
We
today.
do.
We got a guest here today. Zuby is in the house.
Team Zuby.
Yeah, Zuby's in the house. Zuby, when did you get in, by the way? You flew in from...
Man, I got into here yesterday.
Okay.
Yesterday evening. I got to the States a week ago.
You got to the States a week
Yeah,
ago.
I
And this
flew
is
in
from...
So I left the UK 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because the travel ban is still in place. So I had to go outside the Schengen zone for 2 weeks. So I went to Istanbul, stayed there for 2 weeks, and I flew from there to Houston. I spoke at the Young Americans Foundation annual student event. I spoke there on Tuesday.
I saw that, yeah.
That went well. Hundreds and hundreds of students. That was really dope. And yeah, first time in Florida since 1990.
Wow.
And what were you doing in 1990 when you were in Florida?
I think going to Disney World.
Well,
with my
Disney
dad.
World.
Okay, that's
What
cool.
everyone
There
does
you
in
go.
I was a
1990.
very small child.
I could have
Let's go.
guessed
It's
that one.
Vegas for toddlers.
First of all, let me give you the crazy story what happens here. So we're sitting there booking team, and we're trying to figure out guests because, you know, everybody makes recommendation. Gerard says, Pat, you got to get this guy named Zuby.
Yeah.
And I say, Zuby. He says, I'm telling you. Look up.
Yeah.
So I pull him. I'm like, Zuby. So I pull him. I've heard the name before. I go online, I put YouTube. Zuby. I'm like, yeah, of course I know this guy's story. So then 24 hours later, some guy on your Twitter account says, when you're in Florida, you ought to go on Valuetainment. And you say, I don't know what you said. You said, I don't.
I said I can't just walk in there unannounced. Like,
walk in
I have to be
roll up.
invited. Yeah.
Vampire rules.
I
Need to
can't
be
just walk
invited
in unannounced. I said, let's do it. Next thing you know, 1,000 likes later within 10 minutes. I'm like, wow, this guy's, they love this guy. So we got on the calendar.
I
I'm glad
think
we were able to
you're
make it work.
underselling the way that Gerard sold Zuby.
No. To Gerard.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You were like, you gotta get him.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like you were fanboying.
So if
Respect.
if by any chance you don't have a manager that represents you, this guy would be a good one. If he represented you right, he would be a
Okay.
good
For the
one.
low price of 35%.
Okay, so we got a lot of crazy stories to go through. You got a lot of strong opinions. You went viral recently with something you did. You know, we got stories here from Rihanna becoming a billionaire, which we'll cover. We have a story with Miley Cyrus calling out rapper DaBaby, saying we shouldn't cancel him. We should educate him. Kanye West has got his new album apparently coming out, which is... by the way, I love what Jamie Dimon said to Elizabeth Warren when Elizabeth Warren says, you know, all these overdraft fees are baloney. We'll cover that. Record number of journalists jailed worldwide. We don't know why. Maybe we'll cover that a little bit. Chinese mouthpiece paid U.S. newspaper $19 million in ads. I think it's important we cover that. Olympic gold medalist shares USA pride following historic win, which I think everybody loved. Her childlike reaction when she won. And a few other stories. But I think we start off with one story that, Zuby, you may not be familiar with the story, but I think by the time we're done reading about it, you'll have some opinions on this. I hope so.
Okay.
So there's this story of this male rapper identifying as female, declares, if you can bring the story up so we can see it, declares he broke female's deadlift record. So this male rapper, Zuby, identifying as female, declares he broke female deadlift record. This is a WQAD News 8 story, okay? A British rapper named Zuby, okay? Garnered worldwide attention in March 2019 after posting a video of himself declaring he had broken the British women deadlift record. In the tweet, Zuby said that he identified as a woman whilst lifting the weight, ultimately trolling the debate of transgender people competing in athletic events. He claimed to have broken a woman deadlift record of 238 kilograms, that's 528 pounds, and he said it was without even trying. Different athletic organizations, both in the United States and around the world, have their own policies in place to include transgender athletes. The International Olympic Committee, a National Collegiate Athletic Association, and the NAIA all have rules that say transgender women need to pass certain tests. U.S. powerlifting, however, does not allow transgender women to compete as women. So can we play this video, if you don't mind? Just play the video of him doing it, because I think everybody needs to see this. This is you.
Look at that girl. Damn.
That was a clean lift. I could have done like 5 of those.
4 million views, your tweet. I keep hearing about how biological men don't have any physical strength advantage over women in 2019. So watch me destroy the British woman deadlift record without even trying. P.S. I identified as a woman whilst lifting the weight. Don't be a bigot. So,
the inside grip, by the way, sumo deadlift, solid.
Yeah, man.
If Gerard approves, you know it's legit. This guy benches
what
500.
gave you the idea of wanting to do this? Because at one point, everybody was talking about this. So what gave you the idea?
No doubt. So since when would it have been? When did the world start going super silly? Like 2015, 2016. I was following these stories and seeing this happening, right? This is when new gender started being introduced to the Western world and people could identify as anything. And I was like, well, this is ultimately going to lead to, there's going to be downstream repercussions of this. I can see what's happening. I saw what happened with Fallon Fox in MMA, and then in some collegiate areas, I think both in Canada and the USA, I was just seeing, male athletes competing against girls and women by identifying as the opposite gender. And I said, okay, you know what? If those are the rules, let's take this to its logical conclusion. So out of curiosity, I just did a quick Google search of, okay, in my weight class, what's the British women's deadlift record? And I saw it was 215 kilos. My PB is 275. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I just had that video on my phone from one of my training sessions of me pulling 230.
Oh, so you didn't do this afterwards?
No,
you had
no,
already.
no.
I got you.
That was just from one of my training sessions. So I just took it. I just tweeted. At the time, I had 18,000 Twitter followers. I thought this is going to get a couple retweets, a couple LOLs. And I did not know this was going to be the thing that would introduce me to millions of people all around the world. I put that tweet out there, and within seconds, I knew something was up. I was just looking at my phone like, okay, within, I think, 10 minutes, the video had 10,000 views. And it just kept growing and growing. It was getting retweeted all over the world by huge personalities. People were commenting in different languages. And for days and days and days, this thing was just going viral, going viral, going viral. After a while, Joe Rogan picks up on it, talks about it on his podcast, which gives it this whole second boost.
Yep.
And I mean, that was March 2019. And it's gone viral several times since then because people will pick up again on the story.
2 + 2 = 5 for 2 years. 2 + 2 = freaking 5, man.
And then, of course, in the Olympics now, you've had this thing came to head again, right? Where New Zealand had their first transgender weightlifter who failed anyway, but that caused a big stir. So the story sort of is one of those things that just keeps coming back.
What do you think they should do? I mean, right now it's the Olympics, right? I mean, what do you think they should do? So, by the way, there are some people that they strongly believe they want to be transgenders.
Sure.
Okay, so let it be. It's a libertarian mindset. Do as you choose. But how do you think the Olympics should handle transgenders?
Simple. I think there's two options. Either they kind of lead to the same result. Firstly, most people don't understand that most male sports are not actually male sports. They're just open. Right, but
anyone can compete.
Yeah, but it turns out there's never been, for obvious reasons, there's never been a woman.
It's very important to repeat what you just said. So in Olympics, most male sports are open.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Olympics specific, but
You're
most
saying sports in general.
Yeah, I don't believe the NBA, the NFL, the MLB, they don't have a rule saying women are
like
not
you see these women that
allowed.
become like NFL kickers or
even
college
in
kickers.
youth sports in America, especially because women develop faster than young boys do, young girls. So like up until as late as 12, 13 years old, soccer is played girls and boys, basketball girls and boys,
it's open.
baseball girls and boys.
It just turns out that there's never been a woman big and strong enough to play in the NFL or in the NBA, et cetera, which is why you have a women's sports division. So it's the women's sports divisions that are exclusive, whereas the others open. So you just have an open category. So however you identify, whatever, best of the best, and then you have a female category. Simple. That's all.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, like, look, you're talking about a meritocracy at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Like, if somebody's good enough, like, I always thought that the person who really could break down a gender barrier in a sports is a knuckleballer, like a knuckleball pitcher. If there's a woman who could throw a knuckleball, you throw it 65 miles an hour. It's about the movement of the ball. The softer you throw it, the more effective it is. You don't need to overpower. That's somebody that could actually break down a gender barrier. She doesn't need to run as fast as anybody else. She doesn't need to swing the bat. She can literally use a technique, a technical pitch, and be able to compete at that level. So that would be something. But like what Vanderbilt did by running that kicker out so she could kick the ball 30 yards out of bounds and break the gender barriers of the SEC, and it was like, my God almighty. You turned this poor girl into a show pony. That's what you did. You took this poor girl and you turned her into a show pony for your progressive ideology. She won SEC Special Teams Player of the Week for a 30-yard kickoff out of bounds, man.
Well, what's the one thing you always joke about? Like, I got 1 year of eligibility of college left, baseball.
I brought up
I
Zuby.
might go. Okay, gotcha.
As soon as Joe Biden, like one of his very first executive orders from our king was to say no questions asked, to basically reverse what they would call the transgender discrimination that Trump had done, and say that no questions asked, anybody who identifies as a woman should be able to compete in athletics, NCAA athletics, as their gender identity. So I'm like, okay, I could, as a former professional baseball player, go back at my age and play softball at the University of Miami with a metal freaking bat. You're gonna let me hit a ball against 17-year-old girls. And if I hit a ball up the middle and I murder a pitcher, or the third baseman is just getting kneecapped, that's okay. That's equality. Because God forbid you tell me, no, bro, you're a 34-year-old man. Go anywhere but here. That's the part that's bigotry, not me showering with a 17-year-old, 18-year-old girl, in the locker room with a 17, 18-year-old girl, dorming with them, practicing with them, and competing against them. That's equality. But if you preclude me from that, well, you're a bigot.
You know, for me, the way I see it is the following. Why don't you just create a transgender competition? Let them go at it. Let them compete. Let them go at it, rather than having to go and take things away from women. If you want to create a transgender, contest, competition, go for it. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
Where you're competing against somebody.
Well, their argument, Pat, is that they're not transgender.
Yeah, you're
They're
dealing with
women.
ideologues.
Did you hear the argument Navratilova made?
No.
Have you heard the argument she made?
I heard her,
not
I heard her
sure.
say
Can
so.
you pull it up? Can you pull up her argument she made? Tennis player Navratilova, man. To spell that name, Kai.
Martina,
You're
go with
from
Martina
Norway.
N.
I think you, out of everybody, should be able to spell that.
No
Navratilova.
chance Kai spelling this right.
N, not Ma. Mara Savatruchas from Ma. There you go.
Oh, it came up anyway.
So then put
Butchered
trans. Puts
Google knows what you're
transgender.
thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, transgender. She said something about that. She said some quote about it. She said, no, it's critical. So she rejects accusations.
Hit
She
news,
said,
Kai.
click on news. There's a story about this.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, go back, Kai. Go back. There was a story right at the top, right there. Click on that. I think that's when she said.
2019, though.
Well, that's when it was when she said
gotcha.
it though. Go up. She said something very powerful. And by the way, Navratilova is fully supportive of gay rights.
Well, she is gay.
Yeah, I know she is.
Yeah.
But she said something here. Anyways, you guys can continue. I'll find this quote here to read it to you. It's a powerful statement she made.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
Because quite candidly, this is not anything that I'm like waking up being like, what are the trans saying today? This is not like what percentage of the world are transgender? Like 0.001%? Like
A fraction of a fraction of a fraction.
okay, so
of a
why
percent.
is this such a big deal? Because they're infusing themselves into the pop culture and sports?
It's because it's being forced on people.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Right?
weird.
Because most people, look, regardless of whether someone, it shouldn't even be political, but whether someone is liberal, conservative, libertarian, whatever, most people don't care. If you're an adult, do what you want to do. Maybe I don't get it. Maybe I don't, agree with it, whatever. But if that's what you want to do, it's not harming anyone. Live your life how you want. You're a man, you want to wear a dress, you want to put up makeup, you're allowed to. You can do what you want. The problem with this issue is that they're, and again, most transgender people, I've probably know more. Most people don't know any. I actually know a couple. I don't know any who's in favor of this whole sports thing, right? They think it's crazy because they recognize reality.
So it's just the woke left trying to infuse their ideas, ideologues,
exactly.
and the trans are like, yo, we're good.
Yeah,
we
but
don't need your help.
But this is something that would potentially
Chelsea
impact
handlers of
this,
the world.
Yeah, but there's something that impacts 50% of the population,
Yeah.
right? Why is it the men aren't worried about this?
Yeah, because
Right?
it's not going to affect us.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which in itself blows up the entire argument of
But
them
meanwhile,
saying there's
you
no
brought up
difference.
Fallon Fox, and she's literally caving. She was caving women's faces.
Who is
Yeah.
she?
She was a transgender MMA fighter.
Yeah.
She was a man.
This is the problem,
became
right?
a
Was a
woman.
man.
No.
Became a woman
Yeah.
and was able to compete against other women
Yeah.
and cave their
Now, is
faces.
it more common for
literally-
women to become men or
literally
men to
broke
become
her-
women?
literally broke her
Can
skull.
I jump in here and say that you cannot actually change your biological sex? It's not possible.
Okay, break
So
that down.
even saying she, you're giving into the argument. You're not talking about a she. You're talking about a biological male. You cannot change from a man into a woman. It's not possible. You can make yourself appear as such. You can identify as such, but it is not physically possible. And I think part of it is this overt political correctness with people having to, respect the pronouns and change their whole language to defy reality, which actually allows people to run with these crazy arguments. Because as soon as you start calling someone a woman, they're like, well, if they're a woman, why can't they compete against women? And I'm like, well, no, that's not a woman. That's a biological male identifying as a woman.
Why?
Which
Because
they
when
can
you're
do.
young, you go through puberty, and if you're born a boy, you get the hormones.
Rogan's talk about it extensively. It's
none of
bone
us here.
density. It's the muscle retention. I mean, we are. He's right. We're so biologically.
There is nothing that any of us here at this table can do that would turn us into.
Damn,
an
that's bad
actual
news. I thought I
woman.
could
It's not.
make that. Yeah, I'm there. I'm there.
If anybody could,
I think I got this, Zuby. Hold my beer.
It's not
Well,
possible.
who's the most famous transgender person in the world?
Caitlyn Jenner, probably.
Okay, so I have one quick story about this. So, one of my best friends is that guy Chris Humphries that married Kim Kardashian. I was in the wedding. I walked Chloe down the aisle. Bruce was there. This was in
knows Vin Diesel.
2011.
You just dead named.
What's that?
You just dead named. Someone's gonna cancel you.
Oh,
for that.
all right. Well, it happens.
It's called dead naming.
Oh,
Yeah.
because he doesn't exist anymore. But
Yeah.
at the time, it was Bruce Jenner. That was like tying our tie. Point is this.
Watch your language.
I know, guys. I'm
Brace for impact, buddy.
Yeah, it's a
You know,
minefield.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
But point is,
We're not gonna
fast
cancel you,
forward,
we're gonna educate you.
Fast forward. This is probably when did she? He, she. What, I don't know what to say at this point.
A few years ago.
It was probably 2017.
Talk about a future governor of
She did.
California.
She
Have some
did.
respect.
Yeah, I don't think that's happened. No. She came out on Diane Sawyer on, believe, like 2020 and did the whole thing or whatever. But here's the story. That night, Chris was playing for the Wizards at the time, Washington Wizards, and they had just swept the Toronto Raptors, right? Drake was at the game. It was a big deal. And it was breaking news. Caitlyn Jenner announces, because it was rumors that was going on, right? And it was, after the game, we're celebrating, sweep, we're having dinner, having drinks. And I was like, this is some weird shit, huh? And he's like, yeah, like, thank God I got out while I did. And I go, you got to tweet that. And he goes, no, hell no. I'm like, give me your phone. I've never tweeted before in my life. And I tweeted on Chris's, this was me. I'm owning up to it.
You canceled him.
Like, thank God I got out while I did.
You ended his career.
Not so much because of the Jenner thing, but because look at the track record that happened. Lamar Odom, OD, Scott Disick, rehab. The father, like, literally died. Robert Kardashian the son hasn't been seen in years. I'm like, look at you, bro. You're worth $50 million. You just swept the Raptors. Life's great. And he goes, dude, I got no ill will towards Caitlyn. Yeah. But, like, thank God I kind of got out while I did. So I took his phone and I tweeted it. I'm like, ha ha, like, we did it. Like, ha. And, like, dude, an hour later, his publicist calls, what the fuck are you thinking? He's getting slaughtered. Slaughtered on Twitter.
But he didn't throw you under the bus, though.
He came out, made an apology. He wasn't going to be like, my boy saw us. Like,
I could have been my phone was hacked. Yeah.
It literally was. But he came out, made an apology, and like I was staying with him. He goes, never fucking touch my phone again.
Oh man, that's
But he got slaughtered.
This
And I
explains
feel
That's a
bad.
lesson.
in the many months that we've been with Adam Sauce, I have not seen Chris Humphries not one freaking
He ain't
time.
coming.
He ain't
No,
coming.
he'll be
coming.
here. He'll be here.
He's gonna
He ain't
come.
coming. Yeah. He ain't coming. He ain't
Anyway,
coming.
it's a very sensitive topic, but it's at least we're talking about it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
respect to what you're doing, at least making it something.
Dude,
that,
Caitlyn Jenner's got one of the greatest quotes of all time, too, afterwards. She said in L.A. it was easier to come out as transgender than it was to come out as a Republican.
oh yeah.
oh wow,
That's believable.
That makes
I mean,
sense.
you get embraced
sense.
and celebrated by the hyper wokies for the former, and you get denigrated for the latter. So it's not surprising, especially in California. Gosh.
Yeah,
That's
and
actually shocking that you said that because that's pretty ridiculous.
It's her truth, man.
Yeah.
We need to let her live her truth.
Let me ask you a question. So, for me, whoever you edify and lift up, people will do what that person is doing. So, for example, in a sales company for us, I'll always say, you give me the number one person of any company, I'll tell you the future of the company in the next 5 to 10 years, based on who the number one is, not who number two is, who the number one is.
You mean the
Meaning the
CEO?
face. No, not CEO. The sales company, you got 1,000 sales players, sales,
Sapala, you mean?
so
The
sales
man.
leaders,
Love
sales
that guy.
people, yeah. But whoever the number one is, anytime I chose a number one that was more about them than the team, the company collapsed. Every time. But if you chose the right number one, the company exploded. Like Sapalas, they took the company a whole different
The
level.
best.
We've had great number ones, Gaetan, Sapalas, Vart. We've had a lot of different number ones, right? And they're all great number ones because people want to be like, well, okay, can I get that kind of recognition? Yes. Like we're about
Team
to go
players.
we're going to Vegas tomorrow, right? We're going to
Yeah.
have 12,000 people. I'm on the phone last night with Mario Lopez because he's hosting award ceremony, Nicky Jam, Sebastian Maniscalco, Mike Tyson.
Sick.
It's going to be pretty intense event next week in Vegas for a whole week at MGM Grand. But whoever your number one is, people are going to duplicate. So now, you go back 50 years ago in America. Who was the hero in America 50 years ago?
JFK.
That's
Okay.
fair.
Who
That's
else?
fair.
Yeah, I'm with that. But
John
who
Wayne,
else?
John Wayne.
Go 50 years ago. It's
Astronauts?
2071.
The astronauts?
1971.
Oh,
Who's
okay,
a hero?
After that?
1971.
That was
Jimi
Nixon.
Hendrix just died. Nah, Nixon's not.
1971.
No.
Who was the richest man in America in 1971? Who was it? Who was it? Pull it up and see who was it.
Was Lee Iacocca there yet?
I don't know. 1971 is probably going to be
Just pre-
a
Ted
has to be. It
Turner.
has to be Ford. It has to be somebody from
Ford.
it has to
Those
be,
guys.
yeah.
Richest man in the world in 1971.
This is when Sinatra was the
1971.
man.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there you go.
Elvis was
so
Sinatra,
think about that.
Elvis was
Sinatra,
fat
Howard
Elvis.
Hughes.
Howard
Howard Hughes
Hughes.
was one of them. Sam Walton. Okay.
Oh, yeah, Howard
Walton
Hughes.
was getting started.
Daniel Ludwig. It's an interesting story. Okay, so keep going. Frank Sinatra. Everybody wants to be like Frank.
Elvis. Yeah.
Okay,
Hell yeah.
Elvis. You want to be like Elvis.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah,
Who
yeah.
else did you want to
Skinny
be
Elvis.
like?
Skinny. That's Clint Eastwood really getting into his days.
John Wayne.
Well, 71, the counterculture was really big too. You were starting to get. I mean, it was really.
By the way,
really,
look
really
at that. There's Howard
counterculture.
Hughes. So you look
Yeah.
at Howard Hughes
You know.
is. J. Paul Getty was prior to that. Okay.
Okay, I'm thinking
You got
one of the
Sam
greatest-
Walton.
one of the
Walt
greatest-
Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar,
Perfect,
sports-wise.
Kareem.
One of the greatest independent
Hank
films
Aaron.
ever, called Easy Rider by Dennis Hopper and Peter Fonda and Jack
Mm-hmm.
Nicholson, 1971.
Perfect. Jack Nicholson was the face of Hollywood at that. Was he one of the guys?
Peter Fonda probably
Okay,
was a
so
big-
71. Fair. So this
Yeah.
this
The
the point.
Beatles were huge.
The Beatles were huge in 71. Okay,
Stones.
so if you're 18, if you're 14 to 18 years old and you're in high school, like, oh my gosh, bro, I'd love to be like, in baseball it was who? 71 to be, basketball was Kareem. 71
71's gotta
baseball would be
the
Aaron.
end- The end of
Hank
Mantle,
Aaron.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Aaron, let's just say you're looking up to Mickey Mantle. You're looking up to
Yeah.
Aaron, right?
Oh,
Okay.
Mickey
Mantle.
Mantle. You kidding
So,
me?
so these are the heroes we looked up to, right, at that time. So, Kid is competing to be who? That person, okay? Kid is trying to be like that person. Who's the hero today in America?
LeBron James.
Who else?
Well, that's one of them.
Well,
Steph
give
Curry,
me
I would
some of
say,
the
too.
names. Heroes.
Heroes.
Heroes. Who's a
Some would say
Dwayne
Trump. Some
The
would say
Rock
Obama.
Johnson.
Okay,
Some
fine.
would say The
Dwayne The
Rock.
Rock
Go,
for
Johnson.
sure.
go, give the names. So let's just go through them.
If
Obama,
you're
you said
talking
LeBron.
actors, you're talking Leo, you're talking
You
Brad
think
Pitt.
Leo's a hero? You think people look at Leo like they want to be like? Is it?
Brad
Man,
Pitt. People
be-
want Brad
wait,
Pitt.
wait, wait.
If you're talking about the 14 to 18 age range, you got to talk about YouTube.
I was just about to say
Oh,
Jake
okay.
Paul.
Jake
Jake
Paul.
Paul.
yeah,
yeah.
you got to talk about
The
YouTubers
Paul
and
brothers.
influencers. Yeah.
Paul brothers.
PewDiePie.
PewDiePie.
PewDiePie. Who else?
Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast.
You're
Okay.
talking 14 to 18. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Let me go to a different part here. So in 1971, what does a man's man look like in 1971?
Manly.
Oh,
Gi-
he's
gi-
smoking
give me
a
who it is. Is
cigarette.
it
It's
Clint
John
Eastwood?
Wayne.
Clint Eastwood, man.
Clint Eastwood, John Wayne,
my
Frank
day.
Sinatra. You know, somebody like that was a man's man,
gonna
and
pull something up.
you
Yeah.
wanted to be like a man's man in the 70s, right? Okay.
yes.
What does a man's man look like today? What is a man's man today? Is that even an insult to say man's man? What's a man's man?
I think a man's man looks similar, but I don't know if a man's man is what's being pushed to the mainstream, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
No,
Is
no, absolutely.
a man's man likely to be on the cover of a Time magazine today? Is a man's man likely to be the hero today? Is a man's man likely to be someone we look up to today?
No. They're precisely the opposite. They're presented as like being somehow repressive of other people. Like, you know, if you somehow are working a lot and earning, you can't earn a good living for yourself
Yeah.
without somehow oppressing somebody else. You
Toxic.
know, yeah, they literally call it toxic masculinity.
So okay,
yeah.
so let's talk about a rich person. In 1971, if you were rich, did people want to know who the lives of rich and famous was?
For
Was
sure.
it like, oh my
Robin
gosh, can-
Leach, the lifestyles of the rich and famous.
Okay, so it was cool to be rich in the 70s. What is it today to be rich?
I talk about it all the time. What is the thing I hate most about our culture is the repentant rich.
But
You
what
know?
I'm saying to you is like today, not even the repentant rich. I'm talking the 14 to 18-year-old. Is he looking up saying, dude, I admire these rich people. I want to be like them.
Well,
one
there
day."
was
Are
a
they-
study that came out, a poll. They polled people under 21, their thoughts on capitalism versus socialism. It was like shocking. I think 54% said that capitalism was bad and 44% said
Yeah.
capitalism was good.
How
So
many-
younger people are not advocates of capitalism.
Yeah, but they both. I bet you most of the people taking that poll cannot define either of those.
And that
terms
was
with
actually the
any
part B to
accuracy.
that, is
Okay.
that they actually asked the follow-up question, like, would you know the difference? And they're like, yeah, not really.
No, socialism
Yeah.
sounds. I mean, the word sounds nice. Like it rolls off the tongue nicely. It's got the word social in it. Sounds great. You know,
Wait, who doesn't like being social? Social media.
capital sounds
Social
oof,
security.
kinda
Yeah,
aggressive.
but again, I think this is we've forgotten who the hero is.
Can I show you a
like
picture?
we are edifying the wrong hero, so these kids have the wrong image of who to look up to. Because I don't care who you admire, but I at least want to have somebody I put up there to say, hey, one day, what if one day, this is a man's man. This is an example of one day for us to be alike.
I'm going to show you a picture because I actually agree with you.
Point. It's a great
Kai,
point.
pull this picture up. This is trending on social media, and it's basically, back in my day, this was Nas. Now your generation has this
versus
Nas.
Nas X.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I see that. It's freaking hilarious.
Look,
the original Nas versus Lil Nas X.
Listen, I actually look. I have an interesting thought.
You actually
about
have
this.
that outfit.
I have an interesting thought about this. See, with
You
Lil
would
Nas
wear
X,
something like that.
if you look at like the people in the 1700s, 1800s, 18th century, right? These are some of the toughest human beings on planet Earth, and they dressed like that.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
That was-
like the laws of chivalry had to be invented because people were just murking each other. It was like, say something wrong about me, and we'll have a duel, good sir. And I'd shoot you in the face, but I'd walk around looking like that, but then we'd kill each other over an argument.
Something tells me you would have loved to live
I
there.
would have loved it.
I think we need better heroes.
Well,
That's what I think
how
we
about
need.
we just don't need to tear them down? How we forget having better heroes, Pat.
Yeah.
It would be great. Can we just start by not tearing down the heroes that we
Yeah,
already have?
so-
tearing down statues?
So yesterday, this week, I spoke to a guy named Kenny Xu, who wrote the book called The Inconvenient Minority, and he talks about how there's this high school called the Thomas Jefferson High School. It's a #1 high school in America, best grades. Kids come out there. 76% of the school is Asian. Okay, nearly 80% of the kid is
What
Asian.
city is this in?
I don't know. If you look it up, he was talking about Thomas Jefferson High School, and then he talks about how in Harvard, out of all the applicants that submit their applications, they should accept 43% of Harvard should be Asian, but only 21% is because they want to make sure they're inclusive, the whole, making
they
sure we're
discriminate.
discriminate against. They don't want too many Asians there because it's way too much. Out of 5.9% in America, Asian, our population is 5.9% Asian. 22% of Harvard students are Asian, okay? So out of only 5.9 to 22% of Harvard. So they're just completely rocking it, right?
Yeah.
And, he's talking about what's going on, why he didn't want to go to Harvard, et cetera, et cetera. And yesterday I talked to Eddie Gallagher. I don't know if you know Eddie Gallagher is. Eddie Gallagher is, he's the guy that was the Navy SEAL. He did 8 tours, 2 bronze medals, and he was seen with the video with one of the ISIS terrorists that they took the picture in the video and it went viral. He went to prison. You know this story. Chief Eddie Gallagher, Navy SEAL. And then Trump got him. He says, I don't support what he did, but I think a man that put his life out, he's got to get out. And I said, tell me what it's like in the military. The military has something called the Navy, NCIS, okay? It's like the intelligence where they do
I think
research
there's
on you.
literally a TV show called NCIS.
Yeah, if you can pull out what NCIS means. And then there's CID. NCIS and CID are the same thing. I said, what role does NCIS play? He says, who runs NCIS? He says, well, it's the officers. And I said, okay, so why don't officers support what you're doing? He says, because, for them, they don't like us. So I went and Googled. I said, let me look up Navy SEAL. Because when you think about a man's man, what do you think about? You think about, if I told you right now he's a Navy SEAL, what would you say? How would you look at him if I told you he's a Navy SEAL?
Strong, masculine, brave, courageous.
You'd look at him in a different way. I'd look at him now. He's not a Navy SEAL. He just goes to the beach a lot. But but if I said Navy SEAL, you immediately judge him. So I looked up how many people are Navy SEAls in America today. 2,500. How many active billionaires do we have in America today? Around the same number. 2,500. Okay.
Wow.
He said NCIS hates anybody that makes it to the highest level, like Navy SEALs. So who writes about billionaires that they don't like them? You got regulators like an Elizabeth Warren. You got some journalists that go after them.
Activists, yeah.
The CID and regulators, they're the same human beings. He said the most interesting thing to me yesterday because General Milley, I asked him about General Milley. I said, so what happened with General Milley talking about CRT? And here's a general. Like, why is a general going out there defending some of these things being taught? He says, because there's an interesting thing that you don't know about. I said, what's that? He says, in the military, after 04 or 05, to get your promotion, Congress has to sign off on your promotion.
No.
Let me say this one more time. So if you're
The politicians
politicians have to sign off. If you become a colonel or a general, 1-star general, you need Congress to sign off on your promotion. Now,
That's interesting.
this is Gallagher is saying this to me on the podcast we did yesterday. He has a book that just came out called, he's got a book coming out. The interview is going to come out here next week. So the point is, the people who are not the man's man, are in charge of building up who the man's man is. So up until that changes, we are never going to recognize who the man's man is. We are never going to recognize who the real heroes are. So the problem isn't that. The problem is who's telling the world who the real heroes are.
On a small level, on a much smaller level than that, that's an incredible story. And also, if we can find a crossover between the 2,500 Navy SEALs and the 2,500 billionaires, we have Batman. So if we find one that's bold, we've found him. But the interesting thing about what you're saying is there's actually a guy who listens to the show who is pushing back on that, and that's Curt Schilling. Curt Schilling, whether you agree with him or don't agree with him, Curt Schilling is a very great American baseball pitcher.
The bloody sock.
Bloody sock, incredible competitor.
Tough guy.
Tough dude.
Guy.
But he made some, to you know, our establishment some questionable tweets while he was working for ESPN. And now he has requested to be taken off the Hall of Fame ballot.
Yeah.
He's almost a lock to make it this year, and he's been requested to be taken off the ballot because he does not want to give the writers the ability to judge his career. You don't get to tell me whether or not I was a Hall of Famer. He'll wait the 7 years until he goes to the Veterans Committee, which is a bunch of old players that select people that haven't gone through the process. And he's like, I would rather wait and then have my peers put me in the Hall of Fame because I respect them. And if they don't put me in, that's fine. But
Zuby, who was your hero growing up?
Honestly,
who were some of your heroes? I'm
some
curious.
of my heroes, sure thing. Well, I'll start with my parents, right?
Okay.
Which is important. Right?
Yep.
It's important to say. My parents. Who are my
Interesting
heroes?
question, right? Like,
LL Cool J.
okay.
Yeah. LL Cool J is bad as hell.
I like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's guy.
Yeah.
Growing up,
I'm coming to you as well, by the way. I want you to think about it. I'm going to come to you next as well.
Yeah, I'm
Kai, you
legit
too.
trying to think. I used to be really into wrestling, so I loved like The Rock and Stone Cold. And,
How old are you, Zuby?
I'm 34.
Okay.
Yeah,
Same age.
Yeah,
Stone
you know, I
Cold.
was really into all those guys. A lot of, I guess, rappers to some extent, not in terms of like role models, you know, like my dad and my older brothers and you know family for that, but in terms of
Like who were your rappers? Were you a Nas person? Were you Tupac,
Nas,
Biggie?
Jay-Z,
you're
Kanye,
34, so
Tech Nine.
Andre, the three.
No, not really.
Really?
Not really, no.
and this is in the UK?
Mobb Deep.
Mobb Deep.
You were in the UK
Yeah.
at this time?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say like those people were like heroes per se. I mean, these are some of the artists I
Now
was
let me
really
ask you
into.
another question.
Yeah.
Who did your dad admire? Who did your dad
did
say
my
this
dad
is
admire?
a?
Wow.
Who did your mom say? Oh my gosh, this person here is somebody that really made an impact. Who was that person to you?
That's a big question. I'd need to ask my dad.
You're
that.
thinking about that? Are you guys also thinking about it?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, who was it for you? Like, by the way, folks, if you're watching this, I'm curious. Like somebody said here, Jordan, Tyson, Gretzky, Stallone, Arnold. List is long.
Gretzky, nice.
You know, these names that are coming up. But who was your hero? Who was your hero? Actually, think about it. Kai, who was yours? Who was your hero as a kid growing up? You're 22, so I mean,
So,
wasn't
oddly
too long ago.
enough, Steve Irwin, the guy, the animal guy.
Yeah.
I cried like a baby when he died.
wow.
I don't know why. Like, I loved watching his TV show.
Yep.
But he was one of the first people that when he died, like I was
Now
sobbing.
let me ask you: was it you or did your mom and dad also love him and admire him?
I think I probably watched it mostly with my dad.
There you go.
Watching
Okay,
the
so
show
there was a
every time.
connection with your
Yeah.
dad. So how about yourself? Who was your hero?
I had one guy. It was Isaiah Thomas from the Detroit Pistons.
Okay,
I
really?
was obsessed with. I was a point guard. I loved. My dad's from Detroit. He went to University of Michigan. I loved Isaiah Thomas. And then the second person, it was more of a, not a person, but a thought process. I was obsessed with the Civil War. I loved the North. I loved Abraham Lincoln. I saw the movie Glory with Denzel Washington. I
Yeah.
just sympathized with everything that was going on with that, and I just never understood the Confederacy. I was like, fuck them.
How old, but very important. How old were you?
I mean, I was a kid, 10 years old.
That's
whatever.
crazy. So watch how interesting that is because now we're learning about ourselves. Like it's not every day we wake up. Who was my hero when I was a kid, right? Who was yours? Maybe a movie, by the way. You also went to a movie. Like for me, if you think Rocky IV to me, I mean, I watched Rocky IV a few hundred times, and the whole part at the end when he says, at the beginning of this fight, you know, you didn't like, you know, all that. But if you can change,
With Ivan Drago.
if he can change, if I can change, anybody can change.
Who was yours,
It
Pat?
I mean, first of all, my dad is not even close. The disparity between first and second is so let's set that part aside.
He's
It's an
numero
unfair
uno.
advantage, yeah.
Okay.
But Rocky would be one. Okay, what Rocky did.
And you were in Iran at the point?
I was in Iran
Oh,
at the
wow.
point. I'd say Rocky's guys. I would have to tell you, Rocky may be a top 5 growing up as a kid. I think Shah would be on that list.
And that was before you came to
As in
America.
the Rocky character?
The Rocky character, not Sylvester Stallone.
when
the
you
Rocky
were
character.
when
yeah.
you were in Iran, question
Yeah.
for you. You didn't have any ties to America, right?
No, not at all.
But you saw this movie and you're
Yeah.
like, damn, America.
Yeah,
Rocky.
not at all. But because my ties are to Russia. because
Exactly, Ivan
My
Drago.
mother's side, they're all communists. So to them, they have ties to the communistic regime. They escaped that to come, but my mother still had affinity for them. You know, my mother wanted to name me Sasha. We talked about
Yeah, of
this
course.
last week.
So, like,
Sasha, the
would your
character
mother
from-
have rooted for Ivan Drago in that movie?
My mother would have, yes, she would have
That's
definitely
wild.
rooted for Ivan Drago. So,
Wow.
so if you look
Until
at
he
it,
says, "For me,
Yeah.
I went for me."
and then you come to America, and you think who your heroes. I looked up to him. When Michael Jordan retired, I cried like a baby. When Magic got AIDS, I was devastated. When Tupac died, it was like freaking, best friend dying. First president I shook hands with was Clinton at Glendale when I was working at Haagen-Dazs, and he just walked by. I'm like, oh shit.
he
shit.
rolled up to Haagen-Dazs ice cream?
No, he was at Glendale Galleria
okay.
doing a campaign trail, and he was walking out shaking hands. I put my hand out, he shook my hand. I'm like
I'll
14 years
I'll
old.
take a double scoop of
And
chocolate, buddy.
but the point is, like, who did we look up to? Who did mom and dad look up to? My dad looked up man's man. Everything to my dad was a John Wayne. My dad was Clint Eastwood. So you're like, I want to be a man's man one day. Who was yours?
Oof. It's a weird question for me, man, because I was brought up differently. I was brought up like hardcore, New York,
You've told me before, like you had very big admiration for Ron Jeremy, but I'm talking like heroes, like heroes.
Nicky
I'm talking
Bez.
specifically
Big.
heroes. Yeah.
My dad was probably my hero, but my dad was definitely my hero. But I came home with a jersey on one day, and he goes, "Oh yeah, you're gonna wear another man's name on your back? What is wrong with you?"
Bronx Tale.
That's Bronx Tale.
That's
Mickey Mantle don't pay your rent.
That is
Oh, wow.
exactly how my father was. My father's like, "Oh, you're crying because the Mets lost? Okay, I gotta go to work
Daryl
in the
Strawberry
morning.
ain't paying your
I'm gonna
rent.
go to
How
bed."
you feel about that? How'd you feel about it then? How do you feel about it now?
It changed the way I viewed. Like I didn't like. I was very. I think it helped me compete because it gave me an idea that these are just men. If they can do something, I can do something. I really like. There's people like I admire their ability to do their profession, but I never really looked at them as like heroes. To
So
me.
other
I
than your
don't
dad,
know.
there's nobody that
Like,
comes
dude,
to mind?
I'll tell. Like, yeah, but I mean, there's like as I would read and I'd read about historical figures, and as you know, I'm very into politics and history, and like I'd be like, this is a great man. This is a great man. This is a great man who did great things.
Yeah.
But I never really like. I look at it almost as like I could emulate them.
Wow.
Like this is somebody that I can do. If he did it this way, I can do this way as well.
Speaking of great men, by the way, not to cut you off, Kai, I'm shocked you didn't say
Teddy
Winston
Roosevelt.
Churchill and Teddy Roosevelt.
Teddy
This guy-
Roosevelt is
Those
definitely
weren't
like
until
crazy.
later though.
Okay.
You were asking
By
when
the
I
way,
was younger.
by the way, here's what's interesting. Some of the young guys here that I'm looking at, a kid says David Goggins, great guy to look up to, fantastic, because that's a qualified man's man, right? Eazy-E, well, maybe a different story. if you
Give me
look up
that.
to
Give me
Eazy-E.
that.
Chuck Norris, that's right. Chuck
Norris,
Norris.
yeah,
would be
Chuck
one.
Norris.
I'll tell you what, it's something I've had to kind of unlearn as I got older because the mentality becomes like you see someone doing
Yeah.
well and the initial reaction is, oh, he ain't shit, man. Like, man, screw that guy.
That
Like,
hater mentality.
It's a hater. It's a 100%
Don't be
hater
a hater.
mentality.
Don't
and
be a
then
hater.
What ends up happening to it is like, yeah, it's cool. Like you're not a fanboy or nothing like that. Or like,
Is that a
you
part
know-
of Jersey culture or no?
Yes,
is that,
for sure.
Okay, yeah, I
It's
was
the
going to say
tri-state
that's
area,
Jersey
for sure.
Yeah.
But there's also a part of it where
Oh,
you
really?
have to be willing and open to be like, you know what, man, maybe this guy knows something I don't know, and let me humble myself a little bit and let me try to learn in that moment. But it's taken me a very long time to kind of unlearn that, man.
That's interesting.
I don't need this dude. I'm
That must
doing
be a
my
real
own way.
cultural thing because I've never had that. Like I find
Never
myself
had what, Zuby?
like that kind of hater
But
reaction.
is it
to anything.
UK or is it your family?
That's a good question. Probably more family.
Okay.
Probably more family. Like, I mean, I was always brought up, and I think just the way I'm wired to, like, admire and respect, hard work and success, and as what people would call a meritocracy, et cetera.
Yep.
It was never really sort of formally put to me that way, but that's how I always looked at it. I mean, even to this day, I don't hate on anyone or anything. Even with someone who I don't really like, or I don't really like what they're doing or whatever, if someone is successful in any way, shape, or form, there's always something that you can learn from that.
Yeah.
Always something that you can take away. You may not even, some musician could blow up and you don't like their music, but you look into the story of, okay, how did they get there? How did they do it? And you'll pick up something. Even some of these, I don't know, people talk a lot these days about influencers. Oh, there's these people on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and people criticize them because they're like, oh, that girl's just posting dumb dancing videos, and she's but it's like, well, she's got 15 million followers. She's doing something.
Like Addison Rae.
You can learn something from that. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. You could be a business person,
it's an
whatever.
absolute
You can learn
truth
something.
statement to what you're saying. Your parents. Tell us about your parents. Strong. Were they Christians?
Yeah, my parents are Christian.
Okay.
Yeah, so my parents are from Nigeria.
Okay.
So been married 40 plus years. Somewhat good, a perfect combination between traditional values and also being open to the world and embracing new ideas. So my dad's a medical doctor. My mom used to be a journalist. Now she works as a magistrate. And I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and just brought up well. Like, I've got wonderful parents, a wonderful family, which I think is the hugest.
You're very lucky, man.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest privilege that people do not talk about, let alone being born in this time frame. And
which is one of the things
West,
the American left is really, really strong about, wanting to kind of eliminate the nuclear family.
Privilege is a great thing. Like, privilege is a great thing. Like, I think this inversion of privilege to be something you're supposed to be ashamed of and atone for is totally insane, right? Like, if you have privilege, like, take that and use it to your advantage and use it to help other people. Like, there's nothing to be ashamed of.
That's fantastic, man. Sometimes you forget just the values of how to raise a family. This guy came yesterday applying to be a COO of Valuetainment, and he is from Bahrain is where he's from. Okay, and he talked about we're talking about the crime levels in Dubai. Okay, the conversation about Dubai. They don't have guns.
Nothing.
There is no crime at all. But the family values and principles of how they raise their kids and what they do is so high. They value respect, marriage, relationship, all that so high that you don't get a lot of that. And sometimes when
You said you lived in Saudi Arabia for years.
I lived in Saudi Arabia for 19 years.
Wow.
for 19 years.
19 years. That's where I
That's
grew
a
up.
lot more than a year, Adam.
Look at Saudi Arabians and Iranians getting along, right? The
That's
Shiites
right.
and the Sunnis, they're doing it.
I
y'all.
do want to clarify one thing if I can, though, because I don't want it's the wrong mentality to say that I was brought up to be a hater.
Oh yeah, no.
But I do want to clarify.
You did say that's like a Jersey thing.
No,
What is that?
But it's not like I can't really explain it if you didn't grow up in that area. It's not jealousy and it's not hate. It's just like, all right, whatever. He's doing his own thing. Like, I'm not gonna suck up to him to get his shit. Whatever, I'll do my own.
You're not
thing.
gonna fanboy it.
It's like, it's
But
like
that is true. That is New York, Jersey.
But
though. That's,
the other side of
Whatever,
it was
you
is
ain't
like
shit.
No, but
It's like an apathy.
it's an apathy towards it, and like literally, like if somebody would be like, if somebody would come home and like my sisters would go to a birthday party in like Colts Neck at some like big house or something like that, and they come home, they'd be like, you wouldn't believe the size. Like, we had like this little tiny like above ground pool in the backyard and stuff like that. Now, to my father's credit, he grew up in an apartment complex, and like, so having his own yard was he was living his dream no matter what was in it, you know what I mean? So like, now this other person, so my sisters don't know any different. They're coming out and they're like, well, they got this big pool and everything like that. He's like, hey, good for them, God bless, but just be careful because the food they eat don't make you shit. So
Let me say one thing,
that's-
and then I have a question for Pat.
comparison is the thief of joy.
But by the way, what he's saying
agree with
is
you.
very powerful. A lot of people are raised that way. Somebody said here, Dean Martin. That was one of the people we grew up with. Paulette, my sister, was texting me. We grew up to Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin.
my dad loved
Guys.
John Wayne.
Yeah.
John Wayne he loved.
Jerry Lewis, Dean and Jerry.
Yeah.
Well, comparison is the thief of joy. That's the last thing you said, which is actually true. So sometimes, like, I'm actually a pretty respect, bro. Like but I'll find myself hating sometimes, right? I think it happens, right? Like, quite candidly. And then when I find myself hating on someone, I'll say, hold on, why am I hating on this person? And oftentimes it's because they're doing something that I want to be doing or I think I can be doing. So I'll catch myself and say, all right, rather than hating, you ain't shit, just be like, all right, cool. Recognize that that's something that you actually respect and you want to do, and just pursue that rather than hate on him because he's doing that.
That's the way to do it. But I
Yeah.
think that you can't. If any kids are like listening to this, I don't want to say kids, like late teenagers, early 20s, like that's maturity. Like that is what you grow into. That's not something you're an incredibly impressive human being if you're coming to that mentality in your late teens, early 20s. Like a lot of us have to burn bridges, make mistakes, and be like, wake up in the morning with the regrets and be like, damn, I wish I didn't do it like that. And then use those, use those scabs and those scars to build a new person. You know what I mean? So
my question for PBD, do you ever find yourself hating on anybody and catch yourself? Because obviously you're not a hater. You're very big on edifying. Like I never hear you being like, he ain't shit. I've never heard you say like, he ain't nothing, whatever. But do you ever find yourself being like, well, he's no, how do you find that?
Listen, I believe in Doug, which is, we've talked about this. I believe in diffuse, unify, glue. I believe in diffuse, unify, glue. If you can diffuse issues between you and Adam, you and Gerard, and then we unify, we don't have glue. But don't get me wrong, I'm a pretty competitive guy. I like competition. I like sports. But I'm not a fan of manipulators at all. Like, listen, I'm allergic to manipulators. I'm allergic to bullies. I'm allergic to those that want to play games. That, I don't know if you call it hate on. I'll call that out.
Yeah, that's different.
So I'm not for that at all. But man, if you're winning and killing it in the game, more power to you.
Like your whole thing is salute, respect.
Oh yeah, let me put it to you this way. Like even the other day, Ty Lopez. You don't hear the name Ty Lopez a lot lately. But Ty Lopez 4 or 5 years ago was here in my garage. Everybody was hating on the guy here. This is that right?
Yeah.
Today, I saw his post the other day. The guy looks chiseled. The guy looks amazing. He looks fully happy what he's doing. He's not creating content anymore. But he's up
buying
to something.
Companies. He's
good
buying
for him.
companies
I'm very excited for the guy what he's doing. Yesterday, last week, Park called me. She says, "Pat, you won't even believe what happened." I said, "What's that?" I got a call from Joe Rogan. I said, I see you everywhere. She says, I'm going to be on Rogan next week.
Sick.
I said, you have no idea how happy I am. I'm going to tell him that the fact that all this stuff happened after my interview with you on YouTube because she got like 4 million views and then she went on Jordan Peterson, everybody, right? I said, that's fantastic. That's great. And then she was on Rogan. She posted it. And it's been all over the news that this was one of Rogan's best interviews ever, whatever it's been.
And he's going to be on Rogan soon.
But you've been on Rogan before.
Yeah, I've been on before. I'll be on again 17th of August.
Yeah, so you see what Rogan's doing. Rogan's freaking killing the game.
You can't do nothing but respect that guy.
By the way, here's even crazier thing. Chris Cuomo and Andrew Cuomo. What did I say about them when the brothers were going back and forth? What did I say when they were doing the show together?
Oh, you loved them initially. You said, this is great. This can have their own reality show.
Because what it made me think about is, all I think about when I saw that exchange is what Thanksgiving was when these guys were in their teenage years with their mom and dad. All I thought about is the dad. That's all I thought about. All I thought about is what kind of a smack-talking, competitive environment that family was raised on. That's all I think about. I don't go to any other area. But yeah, if you're playing games, you're manipulating, you're dividing, not a fan of you.
Remember, by the way, Mario Cuomo, by the way, was a stud baseball player. And he actually got signed for more money by the Yankees than Mickey Mantle. He was a bust. But he actually got signed for more money than Mickey Mantle.
What a great story.
That's his. That was his initial.
By the way, Cuomo, what do you think about what's... Oh. Okay, I kind of saw this one coming.
Help us out here, Sam.
Pat's been working out, man. Phil Heath, that's on you, Phil. I mean, that's,
Someone help us out here.
But tell me this. Tell me the story with Cuomo right now. So you got a couple things that's going on. Let's transition into that.
Okay.
So on one end, you're seeing the story about how 11 women are coming out. Okay.
Well, first of all, Zuby, do you know who Andrew Cuomo is and what's going on?
Yeah, the governor of New York, right?
Yes, yes. So you hear stories about his stuff is coming out. 11, not his stuff is coming out, but his stories are coming out with 11 different.
His stuff's coming out,
yeah, it's definitely. But 11 women are, so then the other day, the awkward moment where the transition from Chris Cuomo to Don Lemon, and Don says, brother, I love you, Chris. Today we're going to talk about the governor of New York, which was
in a split second.
Second, which was
escalated quickly,
kind of awkward. But what should happen to Andrew? Biden's telling him he should step down? Should he step down?
Dude, he should step down. I just think it's amazing that this is what people are grasping onto, rather than the fact that he put basically human time bombs into nursing homes in New York.
Bingo.
Leading to thousands upon thousands of unnecessary deaths through his policies of putting people who tested positive with COVID back into nursing homes. Somehow people completely gloss over this one. And out of the two sins committed, I think that that one is the more serious one.
Yeah.
Than it's not diminishing how he's behaved towards women, etc. I don't know all the details of that, but it amazes me that we're living in a society where that one is considered, we can gloss over that first thing, and that's the one that
So
might bring
you
him
think
down.
he should step down?
Absolutely, he should have stepped down.
He killed 50,000 people. He should've stepped
last
down.
year when he was accepting he got an Emmy award.
But
he
we
got
all know that's not going to happen. So we all know that's not going to happen.
I don't think he's going
No,
to step
He wrote a best-selling book.
What I'm saying to you is all of that. What you're saying, that's not going to happen. He's not going to step down because of the nursing home. That's not going to happen. I'm talking about should he step down for these allegations, not allegations, investigation that comes up. I'll just read it to you. Biden calls out Cuomo to quit after damning sexual harassment report, The Guardian reports. Joe Biden has led the calls from both parties for New York Governor Andrew Cuomo to resign after an investigation. New York Attorney General Letitia James unveiled the results of an investigation on Tuesday, shows that Cuomo engaged in unwanted groping, kissing, and hugging and made inappropriate comments to multiple women. I think he should resign, said the president. So it's not like, you're sitting here and then asked about Cuomo's attempt to defend himself by using an image in which he's making physical contact with Biden himself. The president said, look, I'm not going to fly-spec this. I'm sure there were some embraces that were totally innocent, but apparently the attorney general decided that there were things going on. So
he blamed his Italian heritage. I'm Italian. We're little handsy.
Come on, man.
But so on the premise, on the story of 11, should he resign based on that?
I lean to a yes.
Adam.
Look, there's a lot of people that are asked to step down. Some people do, some people don't. I mean, do I think he's going to step down? No. I also think
he should. Do you think he should?
Okay, so they didn't. What they're asking him to step down for are these harassment claims. Hear you on that, bro. Like everything he did with the nursing homes. I don't live in New York, so I'm not following all that much. But there is something called due process. I mean, if these accusers, are not lying, he does deserve his time in court. I'm not a Cuomo guy or an anti-Cuomo guy. I'm not.
Should he resign because of this?
I don't think he should resign.
Okay.
I don't think he will resign. But if the facts come out that he did do this, fuck yeah.
No, well, the facts did come out, so that's what they're saying.
Well, not in a court of law, though.
So if I'm Andrew
the
Cuomo,
president is asking you to resign. He's a Democrat. It's not like a Republican's calling out a Democrat. A Democrat
That's
is
maybe
telling
for political.
The president
you
talking
think a
points.
Democrat calling a Democrat to resign?
Yes,
That's
so
not
that,
quite
this
rare.
is exactly.
Well, a lot of the news are
it is
from
and
the
it isn't.
Democrats
It
are
is and
coming
it
after
That's
him.
like Trump asking DeSantis to resign.
And would DeSantis resign?
No,
Trump told him.
wouldn't. If Trump asked to resign, if DeSantis had something like this, the amount of pressures would be for him to have to resign.
Well, you brought that up.
Yeah.
How many people, when speaking of groping, asked Trump to drop out of the race when that Billy Bush? Yeah, I get what he say.
What
Like
I'm
they
saying
grab
to-
him in the pussy.
that's what I'm asking
They
you.
set him
All
to
the-
drop out. He
all the
wins the race
people-
and he becomes
I
president.
think
It's
that's
very
very. I
interesting.
think that's very different.
How's it different?
I think that's very different because that would be like, firstly, that tape was from like the 90s, right? That was
No,
like
not from the 90s.
It was from decades before he became
no,
president.
not decades. Maybe a few years.
Was
Billy
about
Bush, Access Hollywood.
Let's fact check.
I'm gonna check it
what was
right
the date
now.
of
I don't
that? I
think
think
it
it
was
was at
90s.
least a decade before.
I'm going to check it.
But
I
the
think
point
it
is,
I think it is over 10 years.
Yeah, it was
Alright, fine.
that was a private conversation, right? Like, let's be real. We're all guys here. We're not. Let's not.
It was
Locker room
2005.
talk.
2000, yeah, it's 10
Okay, so
years.
exactly 10 years.
years.
Okay,
Okay,
exactly
so-
10 years.
right,
That's
so
a long time.
Yeah,
I agree.
but that's a private conversation.
The
that he
conversation I
didn't
had
know
with
was
Caroline
recorded.
before this started was way
Let's
worse.
be real. Men, women, people. We've all had conversations
This
in
guy.
private that
Community.
you wouldn't want to come out
Touche.
to the
Yes.
public, right? He wasn't president at the time. It was a private conversation.
Basically,
you know,
every conversation I had with Gerard.
Yeah, exactly, right? You wouldn't want that coming out there. People make jokes, whatever. So, so that's a different thing to actually, like, physically groping people. And was that done while Cuomo was governor, right?
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Correct,
it's
yeah.
ttalking about a physical act, and you're
so
talking about.
here's the
I'm
deal.
talking about the fact
Yeah.
that he was asked
Yeah,
to
no,
resign.
I don't think Cuomo should resign because Biden said he should. Right? I think what he actually has done, allegedly, if he did it and
Yeah.
he's got that guilty conscience and he's like, you know what, like I screwed up,
Yeah.
then yeah, I think.
By the way, is there a worse word
next
to have
5
attached
moves.
to your name than allegedly?
Yeah.
They're not, allegedly, he donates all his money to charity. It never.
Yeah,
It's always
yeah.
like allegedly he's doing some groping.
Here's
It's
a
never
question.
good word.
Here's a
Next
question,
five-
though. Go ahead.
Well, next 5 moves, right? We're not asking the right questions, frankly. Why you said it's rare for a Democrat to tell another Democrat. It is and it isn't. Because what is never going to happen in New York? What will never happen in New York State right now?
Tell us.
will a Republican ever be elected either mayor of New York City or governor of New York State?
I think so.
Let's not say never.
I think so.
Giuliani
Not-
was there. I mean, it's not.
Not in this environment and not right now. We're talking 20,
I don't
25 years
know.
ago.
I think the
I'm
best
telling-
ideas always win. So
this-
if the people are sick of the wokeness,
Trust
they
me.
could
Just trust me on this. They would not.
trust the Jersey guy.
Just trust me. They would not be doing this if they thought there was any chance of them losing the gubernatorial bid.
All right,
so
that
they're
makes
going to
sense.
take out Cuomo, who has tried to sprint left with his rhetoric, but is actually a pretty moderate dude.
Yeah.
And why? Because they want to push further left. The epicenter of the far left progressive movement, Justice Democrats in particular, is Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah.
That they have Brooklyn, New York, and they have L.A. and like a cancerous cell, they are spreading from there. So right now you have Yang and you have AOC. AOC can moonwalk into the mayor of New York. She polls incredibly popular in New York. And Yang is not polling well, and they want Yang. Yang would poll well as the governor. So the progressive wing of the party can get a 2-for-1. This is what I told you was going to happen. The Democrats are not worried about Republicans because Republicans have no fight in them, and they've given up on these areas. They have no fight whatsoever. They're not going after New York. They're solidifying the areas that they have. So now the Democrats are kowtowing to the far left progressive wing of the party, and the far left progressive wing of the party is going after Cuomo. So if Cuomo's not going to resign, what Cuomo needs to do is push back, and he needs to immediately say, hey, Joe Biden, that's an interesting thing. You think I should resign. What happened to that woman that you used as a bowling ball that you ended up deciding, that nobody needs to know about that? We're worried about Trump talking about grabbing a woman by the kitty. You were actually accused of doing it in the halls, and she was your intern. And somehow, some way, she disappeared on the campaign trail. Somehow, some way, she went away. Why don't you resign, Uncle Joe? Why don't you take corn pop and go down to Delaware and braid your leg hair? No, I'm going to stay right here, all right, until you resign first. And then
I got to define how this stuff you're saying. Go down to Delaware and braid your leg hair. Is that like a slur? What is
Cuomo
that?
needs
corn pop.
Corn pop.
Corn
yeah.
pop was a bad dude.
Hey, it's a bowling ball. Hey.
Then you got Cuomo needs to then immediately turn hard against the left side of the party, and that is how he can redefine himself and get
They
reelected.
won't do it.
Can we just?
When he's out.
We need to just defund all of these politicians, man. Like,
Slingshot him
Well,
into the
who
sun.
just won? I don't know. Again, not from
Big
New York,
slingshot
but who just
into the sun.
allegedly won the mayor of New York City race? It was a black conservative former. Who's winning? Mayor of New York City.
It's Bill de Blasio.
But there's a new race going on right now.
Yeah, but it's not till next year.
But
Bill de
there's
Blasio was
polls
put
going out right there. Who's the guy at the top of the
By
chart?
the way,
Conservative
let me
at
ask
Yeah,
you.
he's a former police officer.
Gerard,
far left.
If he
He's a former
resigns,
chief of the police officers union.
If he resigns, who takes over?
If who resigns?
If Cuomo resigns, who takes over?
Would be his the assistant. It's not the attorney general. They have a weird secession. They don't have an assistant governor.
Can you pull up who takes over if Cuomo resigns? Kai, just go Google that real quick. Who takes over?
By the way, is it ironic that the governors of
This would
two
be
of
his
the-
fourth term, by the way.
Oh, really?
They have no. I
Is
don't
it
believe they have
ironic that
statute of
the
limitations.
governor of New York and the governor of California are both being asked to resign or
Kathy
getting recalled?
Hochul. Who's Kathy Hochul? Kathy Hochul. She's the next in line in case he was to resign.
Now I'll tell you somebody who should
Search
have
her
resigned.
name. Kathy Hochul. See who that is.
Chris Christie
called
should have
Cuomo's-
resigned after Bridgegate. And then that would have given Kim
Go to
Guadagno an
Wikipedia,
actual
yeah.
fighting chance against Phil Murphy
Right there,
and
second
save
one.
the people of New Jersey.
Wikipedia.
These 8 years of horror Phil
Kathy
Murphy
didn't
has
Hochul
given.
is
resign.
an American lawyer and
Phil Murphy,
politician.
you the
Senator,
ultimate
Senator,
knucklehead.
Senator,
The buck-toothed Goldman Sachs, Boston-ass bean count.
She'll be the first female governor of New York State. Hochul served as a county clerk in 2007 in Congress. She was assumed her seat in Congress. Previously, she was a deputy county clerk. Interesting. So she would take over if Cuomo was to resign.
By the way, Andrew Cuomo's team, since you're watching this, we have reached out to you multiple times for an interview request. Multiple times. If you could just respond to us one time, that would be fantastic. Really appreciate you.
And what we reached out to them is a special project that will be announced here soon that may do pretty good. I don't know if we can reveal any of it, but may do something special here when it's launched. Anyways, okay, so Cuomo, you're saying yes, you're saying no, you're saying he's not going to, you're saying he should, and you're saying he should. Your strategy actually is
pivot.
pretty. Yeah, that was a pretty
Well,
interesting.
what about the follow-up story that he sounds like a needy
Go on the
boyfriend?
offensive.
Like, please come back to New York, please.
Let me read that story
Yeah.
as well. I just don't. The two don't go together.
I think
Hey,
it's weird that people live in New York City by choice, but anyway.
yeah, I don't think.
You're
I,
not-
I don't
you're not a
think
fan
we
of New York
disagree.
City?
Bro, I left.
Have you been? You've spent time in New York?
It's
Yeah.
Jersey and New York are tattooed on my arm.
I love New York
and I'm
City.
gone.
I love visiting New York City. I'll say
Visiting-
that.
yeah,
It's the
visiting.
best city. I love it.
Visiting is one thing, but
Living there is
there are
different,
certain
is what
places
you're
people
saying.
live, and I'm like, man, if you can get out, why are you still there?
You lived in Saudi Arabia for 19 years, and you say that?
Oh my God!
You'd rather live in Saudi Arabia than New York.
You guys don't have a clue.
No,
You don't
really,
have a clue.
really.
No.
Well, as a Jew,
fact
I'm
that
not
you're-
sure
the fact
they're
that
going to
you're-
accept me in Saudi Arabia.
Y'all don't have a clue,
Plus, I
man.
like to
like
drink.
how the fact that you're comparing, I'm like, dude, like what?
Shout out to my boy Kwesi Mitchell,
You're
by the way.
actually
Kwesi
comparing
loves
Saudi Arabia to New York City, bro? Enlighten me, because I'm like,
Well,
Saudi
you-
Arabia.
well,
you need
were
some
you-
serious
were you
enlightenment.
living in a-
Please,
okay.
please go visit.
Were you living in a palace
please
or
go
something?
visit.
Where are you
Talk
living
about
in
for people
Saudi
who don't know.
Arabia?
Wait, let him talk about it for people who
wanna
don't know.
hear.
Tell us about Saudi Arabia. What is it like living there?
About like living there, like in like an expat community, bro. Like you're talking zero crime rate, you're talking zero taxes, you're talking amazing amenities, fantastic infrastructure, incredible communities, fantastic schools. The company you work for paying for your child's education up to college level. You're talking about free healthcare. You're talking about fantastic weather.
But is this specifically in expat communities, you said?
Yeah, so this part,
Okay.
but a lot of what I'm talking about is the whole country. Saudi Arabia has no taxes, period. Okay? The infrastructure around the cities, even if you're talking Riyadh, Jeddah, etc., it's excellent. Very extraordinarily low crime rates. Like you are safer in any Saudi city than you are in any major city in the U.S. by miles. Not even comparable, by miles.
Do you live under the same laws? Are they like were the women in your family forced to
Sharia
to be-
law? Which law are you talking about?
Well, my understanding of Saudi Arabia is that there are repressive cultural laws about what you can wear, what you can say, what you can post. You know,
there is no liquor there, right? It's not.
Alcohol free.
Yeah, alcohol.
I'm out, bro.
Alcohol free. Yeah, if that's
You
a
had
big
me
if
till
that's,
there.
if that's a big thing for
the
you.
women
then-
specifically. Do they have to wear the hijab?
So the hijab, you mean?
Hijab,
So
yeah.
it depends. So stuff has also all changed. So I left Saudi in 2008. So things have actually changed quite significantly from what I understand over the past decade.
Because
under
women can
MBS.
drive now, apparently.
Women can drive now, yes.
It's a big deal.
That is a
because
big
they
deal.
couldn't drive up
No,
until
they know-
about 2016.
Well,
No.
there was just a story recently of women who snuck in to watch a soccer
But-
game, and
but-
then I think were stoned to death, though. So,
In Saudi?
yeah.
Okay, well, you have, please verify that one because that sounds sketch.
Okay, but there you got to admit, it sounds awesome.
Saudi-
You got to
Saudi is
admit
awesome.
that
Kyle,
there's
see if you can pull that up.
you
I
got to
have a-
admit
I have
that
a- I have a-
women don't have it easy in Saudi Arabia.
Look,
West-
you're not the you're not the tourism bureau of Saudi
I'm not
Arabia,
the
and I've
tourism
never
bureau.
been there. But I mean,
No,
I'm just trying to understand.
yeah, that's why I'm laughing because I'm like, when did you go? Right, I lived there for 19 years. So Saudi is a country.
So you
that
basically
people
grew
like
up
to-
there.
I grew up in Saudi Arabia, dude. I went to school there until I would have stayed. I mean, I went to boarding school from the age of 11 back in the UK. So I was back and forth between the two countries from 11 to 20. But you know, like where I grew up, it's why I don't sound British, right? Because a lot of the people I grew up with were American. I grew up in an extraordinarily diverse community, people from all over the world. Most of my teachers were American. I was in the American school system from preschool up until 5th grade, in fact.
Interesting.
And then I switched over to the British. So Saudi is on every level, it's a gigantically misunderstood country in a lot of ways. So obviously, as an expat, you have a certain experience, which is, have you been in Dubai?
I have not.
Yes.
Okay, you've been in Dubai. So
Yes.
closer to that than like some.
It's
weird-
not. Saudi Arabia is not
Yeah.
Iran. Just so you know, it's
No.
not. And by the way, keep this in mind
Iran
when he's
is more
saying.
repressive?
Are you then
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia?
Yeah. By miles, yeah.
It's not even close.
Yeah,
No.
people conflate them.
Yeah, but Kai, can you pull up what I just sent you? 10 questions about expat life in Saudi Arabia answered this one website.
Okay, interesting.
And one of the things that, if you can pull that up, Kai,
Yeah, I'm pulling it
it's actually pretty interesting. What it talks about how women flirt with men, like dating life in Saudi Arabia. Go all the way down.
Also, one thing for Gerard, it was in Iran.
It was in Iran. Okay,
Yeah,
I
so
did
there you go.
conflate them. Okay.
yeah,
keep
people,
going down.
People conflate them.
Okay, accept. Press click accept. Okay, keep going down. What's that? Let's keep going. 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 Family values. Okay, keep going. Keep going. A little lower. It's about to come up here.
Saudi's more comparable to, like, Qatar
lower.
and
Little lower. Right there.
Bahrain.
Dating etiquette. First dates must be low-key affairs. If you live in the same compound or can let them into yours, You will likely spend your first date at the movies or the compound's restaurant. At most likely, society rules don't apply within the compound. This is great. Relaxed option for couples. Some restaurants in big cities also offer private cabins and are lax about letting genders mix within their establishment. Asking around your expat circles is a good way to discover date spots. Okay, so extremely conservative. Many dating a local. Many young Saudis now flirt more openly on apps such as Facebook, Tinder, Snapchat, and Who Share.
Oh, that's
However, women in particular may still shy away from sending photos over messaging apps for fear of family repercussions. Snapchat is popular, and as a woman, you may well be asked, mumkin Snapchat, literally Snapchat possible. You may also be. So dating is go a little lower, Kai. Go a little lower to see what else. Can Saudis marry foreigners? Over 700,000 Saudi women. 10% of all married Saudi women are also because our foreign husband. No. No corresponding figures are available for Saudi men married to non-nationals. So if it's a Saudi spouse you're looking for, there is hope. Arranged marriages are still often arranged between conservative families. LGBT relationship, homosexuality, transgender individuals moving to Saudi Arabia should be aware that it is illegal for men to act and dress like women and vice versa. Homosexuality activity is also against the law and attracts the death penalty.
Whoa.
That said, same-sex
Extraordinarily
men
rare
and
booze.
women may
Sorry, Adam.
find it easier to meet and socialize with potential partners, but they say what it's like to work inside.
And it says only Muslims can marry in Saudi Arabia. Therefore, expat couples of other faiths need to wed outside the
Well,
country.
are you Muslim?
No, I'm Christian.
Christian. Okay.
Yeah.
So
How are the
why did you
individual
leave, though?
liberties?
Why'd you
Oh, yeah,
leave?
go ahead.
Why did you leave?
You retire at 60 there. So my dad reached 60, and the company he worked for, you retire at 60, and so.
But by the way, if you
that
do
was
the math, so this whole thing about why don't they need taxes? Why don't they tax anybody?
Oil money.
Okay, they got
my
the natural.
yeah.
It's like Dubai doesn't tax you,
Yeah,
right? And unemployment is nothing. But say if they didn't tax corporations, that money goes to who? The corporations. What's the big deal if corporations pay for kids' college education? Nothing. We can afford it. What's the big deal if corporations pay for your health insurance? Nothing. They can afford it. What's the big deal? You know what companies can do if they didn't pay taxes?
Saudi Aramco.
One of the biggest
Two
companies
and a
in the
half
world,
trillion
right?
dollar company in the world. Yeah. So
So I'll explain. So with the expat thing, so Saudi Aramco. So when I grew up there, this is in the from the 80s to the 90s, early thousands. So a company like Saudi Aramco, they basically have their own towns. So everyone where I lived worked for the same company, and they have like 4 or 5 of those like dotted around. So they're called camps, which I think was mentioned.
Wow,
was mentioned in that
that's a
article.
throwback to the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah,
man.
so it's weird. I mean, even me being in the UK, I mean, it was weird when I went to Houston and even parts of Miami, et cetera. It's weird because it looks like this place looks more like Saudi than it looks like England, right? So when I was in Houston, I was like, whoa, it looks like Saudi.
because of the refineries and all that, or because the companies?
Just everything, the way everything is laid out.
Houston.
Yeah,
By the way, it's beautiful. If you pull up Saudi Arabia and put up pictures, the buildings, the structures are beautiful. How old were you when you left Saudi?
20.
20? Did you have a
21?
girlfriend?
In the UK, yeah.
But in Saudi, did you have a girlfriend there?
Not in Saudi. No, not in Saudi. So I went to boarding school from 11. So I was
Got
in
it.
boarding school and then in university from 11 to 20 in the UK.
So the first time you had a girlfriend, how old were you?
15?
15.
Yeah.
But that was in Saudi?
No, this was in England, in boarding school.
In boarding school in England.
Yeah.
How much time? So you were literally going back,
I was back and forth between the two countries.
So you were going to boarding school and then
Yeah,
seeing your family.
so during
I got
term
you.
so during term time, I'm in England, and then during the vacations, I'm back in
How many
Saudi.
months here are you in Saudi?
During that period?
Yeah.
How much vacation time is there? I don't know, 4 or 5 months.
4 or 5 months a
4 or
year.
5
You're in
months.
Saudi. The rest of the time, you're in boarding school in UK.
England. Yeah. What is the, what
I,
even
bel
is
I
this?
believe it's
Something
called
like that.
Hogwarts in the UK. He's an oil
They
muggle.
did film Harry Potter partially in my university, of course.
Is that right?
Yeah, in Oxford.
No way. man.
Yeah, I think what is it? Christchurch College, I think.
You went
they
to
used it
Oxford?
for. Yeah. I'm
How
an
was Oxford?
graduate.
How was Oxford?
Oxford was cool, man. It was cool.
Is it what is it the Harvard of is it?
It's the best. Yeah.
Sell us on Oxford.
Sell us in Oxford. Well, it's the oldest university in the world, I believe.
I hate
Firstly?
absolutely hate Ivy League elites though. But please
Okay.
go on. Yeah.
That's all right.
I liked
It's
you
not-
up till now.
It's not Ivy League. It's not Ivy League. That's not a thing in the UK. Yeah, I mean, Oxford and Cambridge are, for decades have been the best, if not centuries, been two of the best universities in the entire world, certainly the top 2 in the UK. I studied computer science, which was, I didn't love my subject, but Oxford itself as a city, have you ever been to Oxford?
No.
The city is beautiful. absolutely beautiful city. The architecture is mind-blowing, incredible.
How far is it from London? Is it
Only an hour and a half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
about 90 miles or something like that. So
Is it a
it's-
party town with students because the school's
well,
there?
There's two universities. So
Okay.
there's Oxford and then there's Oxford Brookes. So there, it's quite a student-oriented place. It's quite a student-oriented place. But Oxford's a fantastic city. It's one of my probably top 5 cities in the UK, and I've been to all of them. But yeah, it's a great place. Obviously, hyper academic, you're surrounded by incredibly smart people all the time, which means you're always having great conversations, and it's good. When you're surrounded by people who inspire you in some way, shape, or form, there's a lot of value in that. And when you're somewhere with so much history, and literally, I think my college in Oxford was built in the 1200s.
Wow.
Didn't C.S.
so
Lewis go to Oxford? Was C.S. Lewis, he went to Oxford or he taught at Oxford?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not certain.
There's a movie
lot of-
about C.S. Lewis. His story is, and I think he used to go. Can you pull up C.S. Lewis profile?
Is that the
Yeah.
Rhodes Scholars? Is that Oxford?
Yeah. Oxford has Rhodes Scholars, so you get a.
So
few of those
Oxford
every
is
year.
more like a Boston. Yeah, he went to Oxford.
Oxford, yeah.
He's an
and
Oxford guy.
Cambridge.
Yeah.
Okay, he had academic.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't. Have you seen his movie? Put C.S. Lewis movie. You ever seen his movie?
I haven't. No.
Oh my gosh, I highly recommend anybody to
Okay.
watch it. It's not a story of not those movies. The story, a life story movie. Yeah, type that. There's a movie that who plays it. Anthony Hopkins plays it. There you go, Shadowlands. If you've never seen this movie, it is absolutely fascinating how interesting of a human being this guy was. From going and being an atheist to writing mere Christianity to divorce letters. I think he wrote divorce letters, screw tape letters. Maybe one of the greatest authors of all time on the stuff that he wrote. And he would go to Oxford and they would debate. To hear those debates that he would have with all these other scholars and professors and educators, the part about, was it a big debate type of school? Were you guys always, was it a debate format? Is that how you guys learned?
Not like for typical
Yeah.
not for typical learning,
Yeah.
but there's the Oxford Union, which you may have heard of, where they bring in speakers and they have there's debate societies and stuff like that.
Were you ever a part of it or no? Because
No, I was never personally a part of it. I wasn't
it.
personally a part of it. I was kind of.
I can see you doing good at that.
Yeah.
Sincerely,
Yeah,
I can
thank
see you
you.
actually doing good at the debate
That's how you
part.
debate.
Yeah.
Did your philosophy, did your kind of libertarian philosophy originate there in Oxford, or has that come later in life? Because I'm wondering here between the Saudi upbringing, and it could be my misunderstanding of Saudi culture,
Sure.
and in Oxford, it would seem that your belief system, although at least as it's presented through social media, seems to kind of be it doesn't converge with what your upbringing should be, right? Is that you seem to have come from a very controlled environment, and now you seem to promote a lot of personal freedom.
I didn't come from a super controlled environment, not in my household, nor in So Saudi's interesting because, here's something that's interesting to know is that what people call like the left-right political spectrum doesn't apply globally.
Well, it doesn't
Right,
even
no-
apply anymore. It's like a
Yeah, but
18th
it's-
century French thing.
Yeah, but if you talk to people in most of Europe or in U.S., it's always the left and the right, and Democrats, Republicans,
talking
Labor,
about this
conservative,
earlier
et cetera,
when I
right?
gave you
So,
some examples,
so
yeah.
like I said, somewhere like Saudi, it's ultra conservative on certain things, sort of in the middle on certain things, and actually sort of very. It's a combination of all. First of all, it's a monarchy. Right, so there are no
It's the
political
kingdom of
yeah,
Saudi
yeah. There's
Arabia.
no political parties.
What's the liberal part of Saudi Arabia?
This is what I mean, right? There's no wings, right? There's
No, not
political
even
parties,
wings.
so-
But what are they liberal on?
Okay, so what I mean is, look at the things some people in the U.S. What do U.S. progressives want? They want free health care. Saudi has that. They want free schooling. Saudi has that. They even want some of them, the far lefties want free university. Saudi has that.
Okay, gotcha.
Right? What do libertarians
Not the
want?
same issue.
Libertarians want no taxes because taxation is theft. Saudi has that. Right?
Why are you living in UK? Why don't you go live there?
I don't. As far as I'm concerned, I've left the UK.
Oh, so you're not what? You're
I don't know. I'm a global
International
I'm
man of
I'm a
mystery.
global nomad. After the past year and a half, I was like, I'm done with this
Are you a
country.
globalist?
I'm not a globalist.
you're living anywhere and everywhere.
I don't know. I'm in the U.S. for the next 3 months. Beyond that, we shall see. I mean, the UK,
Dude, I feel that
don't
on
know.
such a. This is what you and I always have our heated discussions about. Dude, you don't know what it's like to have corrupt politicians steal your home from you. They steal your home, and then you have to then adjust. Because if you don't adjust, then you're going to become a criminal. and that's, you know, so they've literally, I'm sure you didn't want to leave your home, but they've made it an untenable situation.
The UK is I feel sad. Like I was gonna end up leaving the UK anyway, because my audience in the US is much bigger, you know, more opportunities here, etc. So, you know, I could well end up living in Florida, Texas, etc. once I get my visa. But you know, as for me right now, unfortunately, I'm location independent with my business and everything I do, so I'm not tied to any particular city or country, which is wonderful. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm kind of flexible right now, but I'm very disillusioned with the UK now, which makes me sad because I do love the country.
Are you leaning towards anywhere? Or are you leaning towards where you want to live, or none at all?
If it's in the U.S., probably Florida, Texas, or Tennessee. Outside the U.S., you know, I'm a big fan of Central and Eastern Europe. I like Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, Romania, places like that.
Thoughts on Norway, by the way?
Thoughts on Norway? I've never been there.
Oh,
so
you gotta go.
I haven't been to Norway myself.
Kai's from
How
Norway.
about Singapore?
Singapore, I don't know. I've heard that Singapore's been terrible throughout all this. Singapore is another weird one because it's very authoritarian. But it's also very free market.
No taxes.
It's weird. You know, it's another one I think sort of
Who did
like
you interview
Saudi,
that
where
lived in
it's
Singapore?
The crypto billionaire that bought Beeples every day for $69 million.
What's his name, Kai?
yeah.
And he swears by Singapore.
Yeah.
He swears by what it's like to live in Singapore.
Yeah, Singapore.
So
it's weird,
what do you consider home at this point?
Hotel room. Any hotel room.
Any hotel room.
Yeah. I mean, look, in terms of where I'm from is always a weird question because I'm literally a British Nigerian who grew up in Saudi Arabia and went to an American school.
And does not have a British accent.
Yeah,
Sound
exactly.
like American.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And has quite a lot of, you know, American values. Like I always get told, man, Zuby, you're more American than most Americans, right? And you know, I don't like any political party, but I'm more of a Republican than I am a Tory, right?
Gotcha.
In terms of my actual views on stuff. And that's pretty rare in the UK, and I think that's from me not growing up there, living in Saudi Arabia. So with me, you know, I mean, like there's one thing I've really learned. You know, I've traveled to about 36 countries and had heavy exposure to all these different cultures we've mentioned. And with me, one thing I've really learned is, you know, there's pros and cons to all different cultures and political systems and ways of doing things. It's not just one thing. I think a lot in the West is people kind of have this, okay, this is the one way of doing things, this is how we do it, and everything we do is the best way of doing it. And I'm like, no, some things are, right? There's lots of stuff.
Zuby, America's number one, but
yeah.
we're number one.
Yeah, well, people say that, but then they haven't often been anywhere else, right?
Well, Daniel Tosh did a thing, is like, people hate us because we keep saying we're number one. The terrorists don't like it. Just say we're top 10.
Top 10.
And they're like, yeah, they're top 10. All right, that's fine. PB, question for you. You kind of have a similar story. I mean, you've been all over the world. You've traveled. What do you consider home?
Listen, it's born in Iran, made in America.
Oh, I've heard that
simple as
recently.
Born in Iran, made in America. It's that simple for me. I've been all over the world. Yeah. When you're in the military, you go everywhere. When you're, you know, in Iran, you're coming up. You live at a refugee camp, Germany. You see it up. Travel to, I don't know, 50 countries, you know, with all the traveling we've done. But nothing comes close to this. Nothing comes close.
You just think America is your home.
If the ideas stay the same, nothing comes close to this. If the ideas don't stay the same, listen, there's going to be a lot of competition going on out there where people can take market share away from America today. If I was running another country, I would look at it right now and I would be targeting creators, innovators, those who want to be left alone. I would be targeting them like you wouldn't even believe. Because in America, what they could do is, a state like California, you know, they can turn Texas into California. You know how they say, don't California my Florida, don't California my Texas.
But leave your politics back in California.
But if you're in a different country, I can't just send 50,000 people on Greyhound to your place.
Unless that country's America.
Yeah, unless if that country's America. But if I'm living in if I'm in another country right now, and I'm the president or prime minister, you got a lot of opportunity today. You got a lot of. I would be thinking about getting those, because today you can run a business from anywhere. If you got an internet, you got Zoom, you can run it from anywhere. I'd be recruiting people like him. I'd be recruiting innovators like you would not believe, nonstop today. So, but yeah, guys like that are out there. I mean, a lot of people right now are similar to where Zuby's at, where he's trying to think about where to live, where not to live.
Zuby's like a hot free agent right now.
One of my friends in Quebec yesterday just sold all of his stuff and he's just like, I'm done with Canada. I don't
Yeah,
plan to stay. You know, and it's sad. He's he's from there.
Quebec province specifically is insane right now. There were people that weren't allowed in their backyards, and their neighbors were calling the Mounties on them for going in their backyards. Like
Australia, they got the army out now. To enforce stay-at-home orders.
Let's go into some of these other stories that we got here. Let's talk about journalists. So, record number of journalists jailed worldwide. This is Committee to Protect Journalists. Its annual global survey, the Committee to Protect Journalists found at least 274 journalists in jail in relation to their work on December 1st, 2020, exceeding the high of 272 in 2016. China, which arrested several journalists for their coverage on the pandemic, was the world's worst jailer for second year in a row. It was followed by Turkey, which continued to try journalists free on parole and arrest new ones. Egypt, which went to great lengths, you said Egypt, by the way, yesterday, to keep custody of journalists not convicted of any crime, and then Saudi Arabia, which the story doesn't kind of help your story, Zuby, but there you go. Saudi arrests journalists.
Is not perfect.
Okay, countries where the number of jailed journalists rose significantly include Belarus, where mass protests have ensured over the disputed re-election of the longtime president, and Ethiopia, where political unrest has degenerated into armed conflict. Within the United States, no journalists were jailed at the time of CPJ prison census.
Is that, wait, I can name two of them. No?
Julian Assange and Edward Snowden immediately.
But an unprecedented 110 journalists were arrested or criminally charged in 2020, and around 300 were assaulted, the majority by law enforcement, according to the U.S. Press Freedom Tracker. So, journalists, is it a good time to be a journalist, or is it a bad time to be a journalist, or is it just where you live?
Dude, we need journalists. We don't have journalists anymore. We have political operatives that write for periodicals. We need actual people that are fact finders, that are intellectually curious, that are politically agnostic, or at least professional enough to keep their bias to their side and be objective in their reporting. One of the biggest problems that we have right now in the country, and I would imagine in the world, is we cannot operate on the same reality.
Yes.
Depending on where you're getting your information, you have a completely different understanding of the reality that we are living in. And it goes back to what you were talking about, the left versus the right. I ascribe to something called the horseshoe theory. I don't know if you can pull that up. The horseshoe theory, okay? It's not left and right. It's the north and the south on the spectrum that matter more, the libertarian or the authoritarian. If you're conservative of your ideas, that's fine, as long as there's no authoritarianism behind it. You don't force me into your conservative ideas, Sharia law, whatever, fascism. All right? If you're to the left and you believe in equality, equity, and egalitarian society, okay, great. Present it, and if it's a good idea, people will follow it. If you force people into it, if you seize their property, communism, okay? So the further left and right you go, the closer those ideologies are. Okay, the further to the left you get away from the center, the further to the right you get away from the center, the closer they are. Communists and Nazis are much closer to each other than people in the center of the spectrum. People either to the right of center or to the left of center have more in common, okay? So that's what I ascribe to. And what we have now is we have people who are making it, they're justifying bad behavior. If anybody's ever read Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the Gulag Archipelago,
harrowing book.
It's the most important. You talk about a hero. That book literally changed my life. It's a very dense book. That book changed my life because he talks about how quickly it changes. And as soon as good men don't act, evil wins every single day. And all that happens is that journalist was a bad guy. Well, he deserves it. Or well, he shouldn't have written that. He knew what the rules. Why? Why? What is so wrong with this guy writing something that you don't want the world to hear? Let the world hear it and let the ideas play out. You're repressing these people. It doesn't matter what your ideology is. It could have been Christianity in the 1600s. It could have been imperialism. It could have been communism. Whatever it is, as soon as you become authoritarian in the nature, you are in the wrong. It doesn't matter left or right.
The problem is that, well, firstly, some people would disagree with that last sentence, which is part of the problem, right? Because some people are very authoritarian. We've really seen that come to light in the past year and a half.
They really do. They love authority.
Yeah. And another big problem is that a lot of people just don't actually have solid principles, right? And having principles means sometimes you have to defend people and ideas you don't like, or at least the ability for them to be
presented
out there and be presented, right?
Yeah.
So, I think AOC has terrible ideas. I think I think a lot of ideas are terrible, but I would never want, someone to be censored. So like, look at the response to, gosh, I mean, I think people still downplay how significant this is. I mean, your sitting president got deplatformed from all of social media back in January.
It's insane.
Insane, right? And people, how do people justify, I don't like Trump, right? People let their emotions and their feelings, because they're not principled, right? A principled person, even if you despise Trump, you can be like, I despise Trump, I think he's this, I think he's that. But he should be, not just because he's the president, but, we're a free country, he should be allowed to express his ideas. He didn't break the law, he didn't, right? So, there's that, but because people allow like their personal biases and their feelings towards things to determine who should be allowed to speak or what degree or whatever, that's always a problem, because then, people have different ideas and ideologies and belief systems, and as soon as you try to, like you said, when you try to force that on other people, that becomes the issue. It's the same, people understand it, I think, quite well with religion, okay? So, I'm a Christian, some people are Muslim, some people are atheists, Jewish, etc. There's lots and lots of different religions and belief systems. And, you can espouse your belief, you can believe what you want, etc. If I, get on a horse and holding a Bible in one hand and a sword in the other, and I want to go on some crusade to start, converting non-believers, I think people will be like, no, you can't do that. Right? If I want to strap myself with a suicide vest and start blowing people up, crashing planes into buildings, whatever, supposedly to spread, that's the problem, right? That's the line. So you can believe what you want, but if you're trying to force other people to believe what you believe based on force, that's the problem. It doesn't matter if it's political, if it's religious, whatever.
About a year ago, when this whole thing's taking place, year and a half ago, I went up and I said, okay, how are parents judged? Parents are judged based on what? Providing what? A roof over your head, feeding you, taking care of you.
But they're also judged on the behavior of your children, right?
The behavior of your children, how your kids react in school. Okay, great. How is a coach for a basketball team or football team judged?
Whether they win or lose.
Whether you win or lose, playoffs, performance, getting better, all of that. Okay. How is a coach of a college football team judged? How the parents wanting to recruit, all that stuff, right? How is a president judged? How is a CEO of a company judged? How is a salesperson judged? Every one of us is judged. This podcast is judged based on what? If we lose viewers, what they're saying is, we don't like your topic. I'm going to another one. Screw you. Great. We're judged nonstop as you run a podcast. Valuetainment is judged. If we don't do well, we don't grow. If the topic's not good, you do a podcast. If you don't get viewers, they don't like it. You did great. You do video, gets 4 million views on Twitter. Guess what? The audience saying, hey, Zuby, do more of these things. We want to hear from you, right? We're constantly judged. However, how are journalists judged? So I found this article, and this article is Society of Professional Journalists, okay? How they're judged is based on 4 things. Seek truth and report it. Go to the next one. Minimize harm, okay? Act independently. Be accountable and transparent. That is the code of journalism. Go up, let me read a few of them. Go all the way up, Kai, and let me read some of these things here. So let's look at the first one here. Seek truth and report on it. Journalists should take responsibility for the accuracy of their work, verify information before releasing it. Okay, that would have already eliminated 80% of dossier stories. We have an insider that's telling us what is the word they use?
Unnamed sources.
Unnamed sources that told us it's
Adam Schiff. I've got names.
Use original sources whenever possible. Remember that neither speed nor format excuses inaccuracy.
Oh boy, Twitter.
Provide context. Take special care not to misrepresent or oversimplify in promoting, previewing, or summarizing a story.
The
headlines.
Gather, update, and correct information throughout the life of a news story. Gather, update, and correct, right? Be cautious when making promises, but keep the promises they make. So far, is anybody doing, left, right, or middle, is anybody doing this right now?
Every single valuetainer needs to take this.
Let me continue. We're going to put the link for everybody to see this here. Okay, so next, identify source clearly. The public is entitled to as much information as possible to judge the reliability and motivations of sources. Next, consider sources' motives before promising anonymity. Reserve anonymity for sources who may face danger, retribution, or other harm. Fine. Diligently seek subjects of news coverage to allow them to correspond to criticism or allegations of wrongdoing. Avoid undercover or other surreptitious methods of gathering information unless traditional open methods will not yield information valuable to the public. And you see how this is going,
This
right? Okay,
is
go to the next
insane.
one. Let me read the next one here. Avoid stereotyping. Go a little bit higher. Avoid stereotyping. Journalists should examine the ways their value experiences may shape their outcome. Never plagiarize, always attribute. Okay, so that's that part. Minimize harm.
No, go up, go up, go up. This is the most important one. Label, advocacy, and commentary. Label, advocacy, and commentary.
What does that mean to you?
That means stop presenting your opinion as fact.
Facts. Okay, minimize harm. Balance the public's need for information against potential harm or discomfort. Pursuit of the news is not a license for arrogance or undue intrusiveness. So 80% of them are
nuts.
fired. Okay, 80% of them are fired. Okay, show compassion for those who may be affected by news coverage. Okay, use heightened sensitivity when dealing with juveniles, victims of sex crimes, and sorts of subjects who are inexperienced or unable to give consent. Fine. Recognize that legal access to information differs from an ethical justification to publish or broadcast. Avoid pandering to lurid curiosity, even if others do it. You realize none of this stuff, this is what they're held accountable to and how they're judged.
I immediately go to the kid wearing the MAGA hat who got painted as
Destroyed.
yeah.
And they sued
When
him.
he
They
was
won, by the
chanting
way.
in front of the
Keep
Native
going up.
Americans.
Act independently. Kai, go up. Act independent. Avoid conflicts of interest, real or perceived. Disclose unavoidable conflicts. Refuse gifts, favors, fees, free travel, and special treatment. Be wary of sources offering information for favors or money. Deny favored treatment to advertisers. Okay, that definitely doesn't happen, right?
Well, that goes
Okay.
into your next story about the CCP and New York
Yeah,
Times.
let me continue here. On the last one, then we'll go into that story. Explain ethical choices and process to audiences. Respond quickly to questions about accuracy, clarity, and fairness. Acknowledge mistakes and correct them promptly. Expose unethical conduct in journalism, including within their organization. Abide by the same high standards they expect of others.
Ouch.
By the way, that's journalism, okay?
1926.
From 1926.
Boy.
Lots changed in 95 years.
100 years later.
Lots changed in 95 years. So when you go and talk about journalists, maybe some of this stuff, and by the way, on some of the countries you're talking about, like China, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, or some of the countries that they're talking about, look, that's silencing is what they're trying to do. When you go and talk about the government, you cannot do that. In America, you get a raise if you do that, right? If you call on out the government. However, that's journalism. Now let's go to the next one here. Story. Chinese mouthpiece paid in the U.S. newspaper $19 million in ads, printing report. This is page 5 if you want to go to it. Adam been very quiet lately, but we're going to be okay. I just want you to
think
know,
we're gonna
don't
be
stress
just
out
fine.
too much. So this is
I'm
a
learning-
business
Can I just say
standard-
one thing?
Yeah.
There's certain subjects where, people can't wait to speak. This is one of those subjects where you've got two ears and one mouth for a reason, and I'm actually learning. You had some amazing points. You just went through all this, and I'm learning here. This is something that I think the entire audience is learning right now because, this is the one thing we always talk about. There's no, who's one journalist that we can point at and say, wow, that's the guy. Back in the day, it was Walter Cronkite.
Who is today, though?
I don't know. Maybe
is
it's
it?
Joe
Who's
Rogan.
decent?
Glenn Greenwald.
Maybe it's Joe Rogan.
Glenn Greenwald,
Matt
Joe Rogan.
Taibbi.
Matt Taibbi.
You're a
That's
fan
my
of
guy.
What do you think about Brett Baer?
Great bench press.
That's it?
I like Brett Baer.
I don't know that.
I'm a huge
he's
fan of
Fox News
Fareed
guy.
Zakaria. We know that. And I'll say one thing about Fareed Zakaria. He's on CNN, so everyone, in the chatterbox, he's an amazing journalist. He's Indian-born, American-made. I'm sure you can respect that. He did something the other day on his show that I was like, whoa. He did a show, and he goes, hey, my last point, I actually said something last week that was wrong, and I'm here to correct it today, and this was the point. And it wasn't even a major point.
Yeah.
But he came out, and I was like, oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
But I think more journalists need to do that.
Brian Stelter.
No.
Your
Do you
boy.
know a big problem is that the word when people think journalists and pundits are different things.
Yep.
But they've been merged. Don Lemon is a pundit.
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson is a pundit.
Right. Sean Hannity,
Sean-
pundit.
Yeah, they're
course.
pundits. Rachel Maddow, pundits.
Yes.
But they're conflated with journalists.
Yeah.
Right. To me, a journalist is someone who gives the news,
Yes.
reads the news, and it's actually a fairly
Unbiased.
Yeah, as
Here's
long
the
as
facts.
what they're reading
Yes.
is objective. There's not much room to, they don't even really get space to give their opinion. Maybe they could do it in their tone or whatever. So, but I think that when people think journalists, we go to these famous faces who really are pundits
Yes.
more. Yeah, they're sort of journalists to a degree.
Well, none of those
But
guys would
they're-
have matched those scores, by the way. Every name that you
no,
said.
no,
they're not
they're-
trying to.
but they're not trying to. But
Why can't
it's
they
kinda
put on the
merged.
bottom of the screen, this is an opinion show?
Well,
Yeah,
they
This is a
kind
news
of
show.
do.
Why can't they
well,
do
they kind
that?
of do. So they don't present it as news. They present it as editorial. So
what do you mean presented? It doesn't say that on the
Well,
TV.
in the description,
you turn on your TV and it's
this-
boom, the news
it's-
guy,
you
the
know-
news lady. All right, I'm watching the news.
ESPN came out a year and a half ago and says that we're no longer committed to sports. We're committed to editorializing sports.
Stephen A.
So
Smith.
they're
the
not
biggest editorial guy out there. It's just his opinion.
They don't play highlights anymore. There's nothing light. There's not. I haven't watched MTV or ESPN in. It's got to be. I've watched honestly, and this is all I ever watched growing up was MTV, ESPN, MTV, ESPN.
Yeah, me too,
Just go
me
back
too.
and forth between those two
Yep.
things, hours and hours and hours every day. I'd go from Singled Out to Sports Center to whatever TRL live to then Outside the Lines with like I would just go back and forth those two channels. That was it. I've watched maybe 15 minutes total of the two channels in the last 2-3 years, and it's because they're no longer they are the story, and their narrative is first. It's no longer about watching the home runs or the dunks. It's about, well, what does this dunk mean for society? And it's like, I don't care. I don't care what you have to say. I don't.
This is I think it's worth saying. This problem exists in the UK, but it's worse in the US. It's really, really polarized here. Like the media, it's very much,
Have you fully recognized that since being here for the last month or so?
I mean, I've seen it for many years.
Okay.
I mean, I remember, as a kid growing up in Saudi. I mean, we did get CNN out there and Fox News, et cetera. And I remember growing up, everyone always knew that Fox News was like right leaning, but CNN was certainly deemed
supposed
as
to be the center.
Yes, and it did used to be.
Same thing with the New York Times.
Yeah,
it was the paper of record.
Yeah, it did used to be much more so. Whereas now, especially, I haven't owned a TV for 12 years. So when I do watch the news, it really strikes me how propagandistic it is. Right. So I turn it on and I'm just like, whoa, like this is just straight down this side, especially when Trump was in office. Oh, my gosh. It was literally like straight down this way, straight down
Well, what was
this
his
way,
famous line about the media?
The
media is the enemy of the
Man,
people.
I
You think the
love
media took that
was a
well?
bar. That was a bar right there.
Who cares? Was he wrong?
He was right. He was right. I mean, the way they're
Depends on who you're
dividing
looking
people
at.
in the past year
Not
and
really.
a half.
Depends on what team you're on.
Past year and a half, half the population thinks that, there's like a mild flu / cold that's going around the world, which is like, like very minimal risk. Other people think that we're in the middle of a black plague, Armageddon, and a state like Florida. Oh my gosh, what are they calling your governor? Death Santis. Like, oh my gosh, Florida's like they're gonna kill all the people. What? I mean, I'm here. I'm like,
those are all the good people, by the way. We're the bad people. Those are the good people.
But people are really
for
living
us
in
to die.
people are living in absolutely different realities,
yeah.
and that was created by the media all around the world, right?
Intentionally.
Intentionally. Which is when I'm like, man, the media is the enemy of the people, especially when people are now fighting each other. And literally, people are advocating for segregation now. Right?
Well, that's my question.
People
In
are
the UK, are the politics identity politics as well? Are there political divisions based on your immutable characteristics?
They've imported it somewhat from the U.S. So the UK has a bad habit of taking the U.S.'s the worst aspects of the U.S. Like, I love the USA. It's one of my favorite countries in the world. But there are a couple things here which I think are really, really toxic sociopolitically and culturally, and one of those things is identity politics in its various forms. Like, in the U.S., people are too obsessed with race, way too obsessed with race. I understand it somewhat from the history. I mean, you guys use the terms Asian American, Black American, African American, White American. In England, we say British. Like, if someone said I'm Black British or African British, they'd be like, why'd you say that? Like, why are you using that term, right? But here, like, race is like
We're big on labeling.
Yeah, the labeling, it runs through everything. It runs through the meat, and people don't realize it because it's like the default here, right? But when you're looking at it as an outsider, I'm like, why is there always
So in the
white,
news,
black? Like,
in the news,
I don't think it always was the default. I think it points specifically to Carter and affirmative action, because
I don't know.
when Carter did affirmative action, this is just before Pat came here, right? So it became beneficial to label yourself. There became there became an actual profit incentive to be labeled.
I think it goes way back. It goes way before that. I mean, the U.S. has a specific history in regards to race, right? And so these designations,
Thanks
white,
to Britain, mind
black,
you.
etc. Yeah, but UK didn't have like slavery, etc. and segregation the way Jim Crow, all that. The UK didn't have all that, and also the U.S. is much more racially and ethnically diverse, and so I understand where it comes from. It's just that I'm like, yo, it's 2021. Like, why are people still really locked into that?
I don't think it's going to go away. It's a formula to divide, and it's working very effectively. But, even you talking about CNN earlier, somebody commented about Ted Turner. If you've ever read Ted Turner's book, Call Me Ted, I don't know if you guys have read it or not. The ending of the book is fascinating, where he's interviewing one of the current folks at CNN, and he says, I'm so disappointed what you guys have done to CNN. This is not why I started CNN.
Ted Turner said that?
Ted Turner said that. He says, I didn't start CNN to be like this.
When did he say that?
This is a book he wrote years ago. This is not a recent book. Call Me Ted. I highly recommend everybody go buy his book, Call Me Ted. It is fascinating what this man did with his life and how he went from who he was to who he married to the personal life, alcohol. He talks openly about everything. There is nothing he holds back. He tells himself, I'm a great father, I'm a terrible husband. Like the stuff he goes through with the book, it's a book you won't be able to put down. But at the end, he calls out CNN. He says, I am so disappointed with what CNN turned into. At the end of the book. Highly recommend people seeing it. Anyways, let me go into the story here with what happened. Chinese mouthpiece paid U.S. newspapers $19 million in ads, printing report. This is a business standard story. One of China's main propaganda outlets, China Daily, an English language newspaper controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, has paid more than $4.6 million to the Washington Post, $6 million to Wall Street Journal since 2016. The U.S. Justice Department documents showed. Let me say this one more time. $4.6 million to Washington Post, $6 million to Wall Street Journal. As per the Justice Department reports, China Daily also paid for advertisers in several other newspapers, including New York Times, Foreign Policy, Des Moines Register, CQ Roll Call. It spent a total of $11 million on advertising in newspapers and another $265 on advertising with Twitter. The LA Times, Seattle Times, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Chicago Tribune, the Houston Chronicle, the Boston Globe are all listed as clients of China Daily. The China outlet paid LA Times $650,000 for printing services. So, question. All of this stuff we just talked about, right? All of this stuff we just talked about, they're taking money from a company that's controlled. Let me say this one more time. China Daily is an English language newspaper controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. So, I got a story with this. Adam, you would remember this. Kai, you'll definitely remember this. We're doing an event. I don't know where this event was. It may have been SLS. I think it was SLS. So while I'm doing the event, I get an email from this major public PR firm in New York. We want to have a call with you. So we go and have a call with them in New York. We're a PR firm, but 100% of the clients they represent is from China. So I go look them up. I'm like, wow, it's a pretty big PR firm, but it's all China-based companies. So I said, there's this nonprofit organization in China. I have this in email. Kai, do you remember this? Nonprofit organization in China wants to give me $600,000, of which I keep $300,000 of it. The other $300,000 at an event, charity event in China, I give the $300,000 and I donate it to that nonprofit organization.
You donate it.
That I donate. So let me say this one more time. $600K, I keep the $300. The other $300 I donate. So we do a Zoom with them. We do a call with them. The most awkward call, and the way the man spoke was very strange. Like, yeah, you just come, we fly you, we take care of you, we come over here, and then we like what the work you do. We just want to give you $600,000, and you make a big check, and you give us $300,000 to our charity. But you can keep the other $300,000, and it's going to be a great experience if you come out here and do this. I'm like, interesting. I call my attorney. He says, first of all, you take this money. If it even should, because it's like a speaking gig. He says, if you even take this money, if you ever have any plans of doing anything later on, they're always going to say, owned by China, right? But you have to give them credit on how brilliant they are.
Yes.
Because they're willing to buy influence. And how many people would say yes to that $600,000 check? A lot of people. That's a lot of money. You keep $300,000 of it, you come out here and you do this. But so then the question becomes, what is wrong with a company taking money from a China Daily that's owned by a Chinese Communist Party? Is there anything wrong with that? That's number one. Number two, If there is something wrong with that, why are they saying yes to it? Is it just because about profits?
This is what's wrong with it. What's wrong with it is that they presented their advertising as if it were native articles. It's not just that they took the advertising. Advertising's fine, all right? Newsmax wants to do My Pillow. My Pillow guy wants to, throw up, QAnon stuff. Go for it. Whatever. Fine. But don't present it as news, which is what the New York Times, the Washington Post, and everybody else did. They took the money and then they took these articles that were very clearly written by Chinese propagandists and they presented them as if they were news. That's what was wrong. In addition, that's the money we know about. What I'm more concerned about than these bought and paid for corrupt news media organizations are the universities. The universities have been taking so much money from China for so long and funneling communist propaganda, actual literal communist propaganda, into the youth.
And it's working.
And it's working. They are buying the future.
They set up Confucian schools at a lot of these
we
universities.
are losing a war most people are unaware is going on.
I quoted that. I literally said that yesterday to someone.
That's the problem. And unless people recognize it and develop a strategy to counteract it,
dude, Hollywood and the entertainment industry and the sports industry, like
this is
NBA.
Remember that John Cena thing where he came out?
Yeah,
apologizing,
like,
bro,
I'm so sorry, started
like,
crying.
What are your thoughts on that?
But
on this podcast, I called Cena China's bitch.
by the way, there's certain things that we should be on the same page
Stolen
with,
valor,
and there's certain things we should be on the same page with. This being one of them. It's a common enemy. They don't care about America. They don't care about the Democratic Party. They don't care about the Republican Party. But the people that they like are those who are for sale. Look at presidents who couldn't be bought. Look at presidents who could care less whether you were going to buy him with money or not. Name presidents historically that couldn't be controlled by money.
Man.
Name presidents that couldn't. Trump's one of them. Who else?
JFK.
JFK is another one. Who else?
Oh, Teddy Roosevelt, Dwight Eisenhower.
Who else?
Not many in the last
Okay,
40
Reagan.
years.
Wait a minute. Reagan had money. Who else? Okay, Abraham Lincoln. You think Lincoln cared about money? No. What happened to those four? Go Lincoln. What happened to him? How did it? Okay.
Literal or character assassination.
Yeah. What happened to John F. Kennedy? Okay.
Assassinated.
What happened to Reagan? 6 inches away.
Yeah,
What happened to
shot.
Trump? They couldn't. If they did what they did to JFK with Trump, Trump would have been martyred. Trump would have gone down as the greatest. It would have been the Republican. He would have replaced Reagan if that would have happened. He would have
Are
that
you
status.
shocked that there wasn't at least an attempt on Trump? I got to be honest. I was shocked.
How do we know there weren't?
Yeah, I think to me, what's worse though? There are many methods of assassination. What's worse though?
Character
This
assassination.
color
There's
revolution.
nothing
for sure,
worse than character assassination. I mean, you saw the article that came up with Vanity Fair, how Rudy Giuliani went from a 9/11 hallowed mayor to 2021 haunted ghoul. If you read that story about Rudy Giuliani, the way they present him, this guy went from winning the G-Man Award a few years ago from FBI in 2015 to all of a sudden
them tearing down his
to him
apartment.
so
Page
so
7, Pat.
yeah, no, I see it. I'm just not. The whole story is a long story for me to go through with Giuliani. It's
Would
just
you
you're
do
seeing,
business with China right now? If China wanted to open, you
No.
wouldn't. So
No.
if they said we're going to come in, we're going to make PHP the.
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. You know why I wouldn't do it? Why would I ever do something like that? I'm not a fan of control. So what leverage do I have over you? Let's just say I do that. What leverage do I have over you? What leverage? The other day, I'm trying to pick up my global entry card from TSA. You know how Clear talks to me? The difference between buying a Clear card and TSA. You ready? Clear. How are you, Mr. Red David? Good to see you. Have you resigned? We'd love to get your family on the program as well. Oh, it's totally fun. Would you like a mask? Oh, we'd be more than happy to help you out. You know how TSA? I show up. Caroline calls us. This woman just hung up on me. Okay? I'm driving down to TSA to get my global entry card. Why are you late?
Yeah.
Why are you so late? What happened? Do you realize? I said, ma'am, there's nobody here, but I'm sorry I'm late. I said, ma'am, I'm looking forward to seeing you in 5 years when I renew. I will not be here intentionally to not ever deal with somebody like you who is late. I said, I'm so sorry. So I left. $100. $100. Government doesn't give you service. You think I want to go in bed with somebody that represents the government? What are they going to do? They're on my team? Hell no. What team are they going to be on? So I'm surprised where a lot of these U.S. companies want to do business with China thinking they're going to be on your team.
Well,
they're
Pat,
not going to be on
let me
your team.
pose you a
They
question.
choose China over the U.S. too.
Put yourself. Pat now, established, has money. Money's not an issue. Pat 10 years ago, just starting out, scraping by.
Yeah, I don't.
Maybe you. I'm not saying you, but that person.
I don't disagree.
Would maybe consider it.
By the way,
more than this
I don't
person.
disagree. This is why. This is why I'm concerned if a person who becomes president doesn't have their own money, nor have they served in the military. I have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
I think a president should have their own money because you don't make any desperate moves.
Yep.
And you should have served in the military. Those are my two criteria for me.
So
I think, because who the hell are you to tell a military guy what to do? Do you realize how disrespectful it is to tell you don't even know what life they're living in. You want to tell them what to do. Yeah, a soldier's going to sit there and say, what the hell are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, you want to tell me what my life is like? Like, imagine if I tell you what it is to be a comedian. You guys are going to sit there and say, what are you talking about? You don't know what it is to be a comedian. I've never been in that room when comics are talking to it. It's like me talking, what's the big deal about stealing jokes? You're like, what the hell is the matter with you?
Yeah.
So, to me, you want to be a president, governor, whatever. Congress, Senate, go for it. You want to be president, you have to have your own money, established, your own money. And number two, you have to have served the military.
Well, look at Trump. He had his own money, but he didn't serve in the military.
So I'm not. That's
no, I'm just asking.
Yeah, and he's getting there telling generals what to do. I'm sorry. There's a difference. You got if you don't have it, you can't talk to them as if you know their world.
Do you know the only president to have a family member serve in the military in the last 50 years?
Bush.
No.
Family, relative.
A kid, one of their kids, is Biden.
No. I'm talking about
Biden.
them.
No, I know. I get it. I'm saying that, but you're saying you have no authority to tell a general
No,
Trump.
buddy, you do not.
Yeah.
You don't. Yeah, let me tell you, military is a very emotional.
Yeah.
These guys are talking about mental, health and all this stuff. By the way, in the military, like Simone Biles can take a break and go become a hero for mental health and what she did. She has a choice to do that. Of course, you can't do that in war. You cannot do that when you're under that pressure. You cannot do that when you're firing lines. You don't have the luxury to say, "Hey guys, please stop shooting. Guys, please. I have a headache. I'm getting an attack, anxiety attack.
Little depression.
Let's please stop. I'm going to
This is
take
a
a
lot.
break. This is too much for me. Please, I'm asking you, stop shooting. Okay, I'm going to get up. It's like, you know how you do a paint gun and guy gets up and walks out. Guys. You know.
me.
So for a person
Take a
to
break
act
here,
like
guys.
they understand the military,
Yeah.
or for a person who doesn't have
That's a
money
great point.
for a person who doesn't have money to be a president, you scare me.
Yeah.
Let me give you a different perspective. One of the things when we hire C-suite executives, you know what I like to hear from C-suite executives? I'll tell you, one of the guys who expected a job, here's how he recruited himself. Look at the way he did it. I loved his interview. One of my favorites, the way he did it. He says, I just want you to know I have a lot of different options right now for jobs because I'm very good at what I do. And you can call my references of the last 20 years and you will see what they say. I work half days. These are the kind of hours I work. I'm going to be here at this time. I'm going to be here at this time. And my schedule works this way. But I want you to know I've had a lot of different exits. So financially, I don't need salary. I don't care what you pay me salary-wise. You need to pay me a decent salary for what the market tells me, but I don't want to be the highest paid salary, guys. My interest is in equity. I want you to give me equity and give me a lot of equity because that's what I want to build. I want to help build a company because I've already had multiple seven-figure exits. I have cash. I have money. I don't need to worry about what I need to do to take care of my family for the rest of my life. But I'm only here because of the equity. Do you know I want him in leadership position because he will never make a desperate move, nor will he ever give me feedback because he's worried about finances. Now flip it. I had another guy that came for a job interview a few years ago. I'm doing the interview with him. This is one of the reasons why I was scared about the haircut I was getting yesterday. This is another interview I'm doing for a job. This guy's also applying for a C-suite job, but this is 6 years ago. So he comes in and the interview goes, resume, decorated resume, and he goes through it. I want to be the CMO and I want to do this. I said, no problem. Let's go through the interview. So all of a sudden in the interview, okay, first 10 minutes, impressive. Second 10 minutes, impressive. Third 10 minutes, he just says, man, I got to let you know what's been happening with me. This is my second divorce and I just went through this and I have to pay this much money and I'm back on the rent. If you can just pay in advance of $20,000 for me to be able to do this and for me to be able to do that, and while I'm moving this, if you can throw another $10,000 in, it would be so amazing because of where I'm at. You know what I sat there and I thought about? I'm like, ooh, I got to be careful with this. Why?
This guy's desperate.
Because and by the way, there's difference. All of us have been in a desperate position before, but not when. This is not even a talent thing. I don't worry about talent. This is an executive position. This is very different with talent. Talent is a different story. An executive position where you have to lead people, you can't be stressed out about money. So I want to make sure household is good. I want to make sure finances are good. I want to make sure you've had the moral authority to tell other people what to do. So you want to be a president? I would put, if I was, now obviously I'm not the one that's making the guidelines here. For me, if you want to be a president, I think you got to have a net worth of, you got to have your wife, your kids covered, your future retirement covered. If you got minimum $10 million, $20 million, okay, great. That's fine. But if you're in and you're only worth a couple $100,000, you're going to do side deals for money because you've never tasted money before.
Pat,
You've never tasted money before.
Pat, what
Yes.
if you've made these $10-20 million in politics?
No, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't
Shouldn't
like
be
that
able to.
because to me, Kai, so to me, there's two things that you will never relate to. Two things that you will never relate to. So for example, let's put the one thing that men will never understand. What is the one thing?
Having a baby.
We will never understand what it is to have a baby. Ever. I've seen my wife, what she goes through with the baby. We are never going to understand that pain, okay, that they go through. Now, so let's set that aside. That's on the pinnacle position for me at the top. So let's set that part aside. We're never going to know it. No matter what we ever do, you're never going to know it. So now let's go to the other side. A woman who was a woman worth $500 million, she said, hey, man, can I tell you guys something? The closest thing you'll ever know about what it is to raise a baby and have a baby is to start a company and you're the founder. Only founders will know the closest thing to the pain we go through having a baby. Okay. If a politician has never ran a business where he put his money on the line, how the hell do you know what it is to be a small business owner? You don't know what it is to be a small business. You don't even know how scary it is.
You don't know what it is to be a taxpayer.
By the way, when I was going through anxiety attacks in 2013, 2014, I couldn't tell the bank to stop asking for payments. I couldn't tell my guy that I'm released a $2 million contract on the office building to give me 6 months to pay rent. I couldn't tell the guys, hey, please, guys, don't put this. I couldn't tell my competitors, stop trying to poach some of our guys. I couldn't tell my carriers, hey, please be a little bit nicer to us right now because I'm going through mental and anxiety. I couldn't tell anybody anything. Founders don't have that ability.
Should you be able to? Should you be able to call timeout?
No,
on life?
It's like the war analogy.
It's not about should. Yes, you should be able to. But should your competitors stop taking business from you? No. You should be able to do it. But you should also realize that you're going to lose if you do that.
Yeah.
No one's going to stop
Absolutely.
competing. The market's not going to stop competing in this kind of a society. So yeah, I have a little bit of a hard time when somebody becomes a president who, one, hasn't made the money, and two, you've never served. What moral authority does it give you to tell us what to do?
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think on the first point, I mean, going wider on that is human beings respond to incentives, right? So if you really understand just how the effect of incentives on people, it explains so much behavior and so much stuff. And going back to what you were talking about before with China, is like China can, run this Cold War game, et cetera. Like, China's been waging war without firing any bullets or dropping any bombs,
Winning it
right?
too, yeah.
Because they understand incentives. So when they've got their tentacles in Hollywood, in the NBA, in sports, in Africa, they're buying up all this land and funding certain things, et cetera. They're not coming in with, it's not like threats and violence. Not that old school. We're going to just come in here with our guns and take stuff over. It's no, we've got a hand in every single aspect. We're in your political system, your entertainment, your sports, everything. So, I mean, even this past year and a half, I mean, dude, you got people fighting each other over this virus, over masks, vaccines, whatever. What's the one thing that people can't talk about? Where did this thing come from?
Yeah.
Right?
Unless if your name is Jon Stewart.
Yeah, people were more mad about...
Have you seen him on TV after he said that, though?
What?
When was that?
No, you haven't seen him.
People were more mad. People get more mad about you saying the term Chinese virus or Kung flu than they get mad about the fact that China either leaked or unleashed this thing out to the world, lied about it, covered it up for et cetera. Dude, China's been back to normal since like about May last year.
They won so big.
How? 1.4 billion people, epicenter of the virus. Like they were distributing vaccines spring last year. Which vaccine? How? Like, if we had a real media and real journalists that are, operating independently,
Great point.
won't they be asking? Like, there's
not gonna
so
last
many.
like this for too
There
long,
are
though.
so many
Yeah.
questions here, and I'm just like, wait, we're arguing about all this stuff. I'm like, can we go up a level and be like, wait, what happened?
They were allegedly the only
What happened
country
here?
that had a positive GDP.
Well,
in
here's the
2020.
big elephant in the room. You're talking about
4,000 deaths. Like, wait,
the big elephant in the room that people aren't willing to talk about. China understands our psyche better than we do, and they understand. Look, I'll just be real. White women in particular, they love authority, bro. They take to authoritarianism. These Karens took to authoritarianism like ducks to water. They found their vein. They found their person. They were like, That's my target demographic. They found them and they exploited the heck out of it. And what they understood, probably they understand capitalism better than we do. What is the number one advertising demographic? 18 and 39 females. 18 and 30. So if you own the hearts and minds of those women, you own every company trying to sell them everything.
That's some deep shit.
So China, the
CCP's like, we're going
They're
after
smart,
Karen.
man.
bingo.
And they're open
Bingo.
about this, man. They have what they call it, the 100-year plan.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's it's not even like we're coming up with conspiracy theories or something. It's like they're open. They're like, look, this is what we're doing. In X amount of time, we're gonna, have this. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. And
I look forward to a day when conspiracy theories start being wrong again.
oh no,
Conspiracy theorists are just spoiler alert us now. You guys are gonna find this out in 6 months, but yeah, this is what's actually happening.
Some really good points, boys. I got to give you respect.
All right, all good, guys. We are at that time right now. We've gone after 7 minutes. Folks, if you enjoyed having Zuby on today, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. Zuby, appreciate you for coming out.
Zuby.
Man, this
Thank
was
you so
great
much,
to
man.
hear your
Thank you.
perspective.
Respect, thank you.
Fantastic.
Real quick before we go, Pat, you got to tell them what this suit is.
It's
man.
a
The
3-day
shirt,
suit
the
broker,
whole-
$99. You can get it. It's but
Men's
it is what it
Warehouse,
is. It's been a
you're gonna
great
like
time.
the way you look.
So just so everybody knows, here's some good and bad news for you. The good news is future looks bright. Everything's going to work out. The bad news is we will not be doing podcasts for, I think, 2 weeks. I'm going to be out next week, and I'm going to be out the following week. We changed this thing for Friday to get Zuby on here. We typically do these on Thursday. But within the next 4 weeks, we will be back on. This doesn't mean you're doing a podcast today, Saucecast.
Yes,
we'll be back on today. We'll have things that are going on. Well, you'll hear about a project I think we're announcing possibly next Tuesday. That's going to be massive. Next Tuesday we'll be announcing. But outside of that, we'll come back again with the podcast. Stay tuned. But
And the vault is 4 weeks away.
Vault is 4. Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
should I announce the speaker?
Go ahead, Pat. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm about to announce the speaker. He is. Don't say anything. Don't even speculate. I'm about to say it. He is a #1 ranked current UFC fighter, which we'll
Wow.
announce. If you want to find out who it is for the vault, text me at 310-340-1132, 310-340-1132. One more time, 310-340-1132. Vault Conference.
Yeah, what's
at
the website?
Diplomat.
Where can people sign up and learn more about the vault?
TheVaultConference.com. TheVaultConference.com. If you text me at 310-340-1132, we're going to give a special discount code for the first 10 people that buy tickets on today, only on the text code, but you got to be on that text distribution, 310-340-1132. I'll be announcing who the speaker is probably in the next hour or so. So send us a text at 310-340-1132. I feel like I'm one of these infomercial guy. And if you call right now, we will send you a second set of knives. Okay. Have a good one, everybody. Take care. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.